labeled in a certain way.
It's not just a talk show, it's a movement.
When they are standing, we need to stand out.
From heartwarming tales to hilarious adventures.
They could ask me, Catherine, why are you learning?
We are turning the spotlight on women who are breaking barriers in their individual fields.
You have to have a vision.
You are the leaders of Kenya today.
Keeping it honest and relatable.
Mental health is real.
Yes.
Where there is no communication, there is no relationship.
Join the sisterhood on KBC TV for Dada's show.
Kila mwisho wa juma hapa katika runinga yako ya KBC Channel 1 tunakuletea Mkulima.
Mkulima ni kipindi cha kila mtu. Mkulima mdogo, mkubwa, mnunuzi, muuzaji na pia anayenuia kuanza kilimo.
Kuanzia kwa mbinu bora na za kisasa za kilimo, ufugaji,
Kukupa fursa za biashara, kuongeza thamana hadi teknolojia zinazorahisisha kilimo.
Mkulima kisasa inakupa wewe maarifa, motisha na suluhu za kukuza mazao.
Kuongeza kipato na pia kulisha taifa kwa jumla.
Tunafeed nchi, tunafeed watoto wetu, na tunafeed Europa, na tunaweka pesa mfukoni.
Tazama Mkulima kila Jumamosi saa 10:30
kwenye runinga ya taifa.
Mkulima, tuko hapa kwa ajili yako,
ambapo fursa na kilimo zinapatana.
Good morning. 1st of July, 2025. The month of June is gone. Vivian, right?
Just like that.
Mike, right?
Oh, yes.
Hey, Marie, Cindy. It was that month for us.
Oh, yes.
It was that month for us, people.
It's a month that had a lot going on.
Yes.
And yeah, we're glad we're done with the month, and we hope that, you know, this new beginning of July will bring some good energy with it. Yeah, for sure.
Mike, it was a marathon.
It was a marathon for the country. And,
Yeah.
whatever happens, we still remain one as a country. And we hope that the month of July will be kind to us and everyone who is living within the borders of Kenya. Yes.
Marie, it was one of those months that really tested our patience as Kenyans, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so just like the others have said, we hope that moving forward, even as people agitate for whatever they want,
Yeah.
we'll see a redirection of how people are going to be handling that. Loss of lives, property and all that, that's going to take quite some time to recover from.
Yes.
So yeah, moving forward, we hope we'll have a semblance of, you know, some peace and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, welcome to Good Morning Kenya on this beautiful day of 1st of July 2025. It's Tuesday, okay. Boniface lost the battle at the KNH yesterday. He lost the battle. It's one of those most painful moments that we witnessed in the month, ever captured live on camera. It's traumatizing, and we just pray for the family for peace and comfort. All right, so let's talk about state of the economy. Today, the new financial year is officially on, and the president signed it into law. Now we have a new budget that is going to help the country run for the next 1 year. So today, let's talk about state of the economy, projections for the financial year 2025-2026. What should we expect, even as we have got so many adjustments that FCPA, that is Cabinet Secretary, that is John Mbadi, made in that budget. So FCPA, Hesbon Omolo, Council Member of East Park, will be here. Kevin Osido, Executive Director of the County Governor's Watch, and finally Professor Emmanuel Mutisia, who is an economist. All will be here at exactly 7. I want us to do 1 hour and take a look at what you should expect in the year 2025-2026. Nego, Vivian.
Yeah, right. And even as you talk about the state of the economy, I think it is right for us to mention that the inflation rate has remained steady. You know, it has neither risen or fallen. It is at a steady 3.8%. So I would love you to also get into that with your panelists, just to get to know, is that good for our pockets? Is it not, and why? If you get into that, so that we can just be able to understand that better. Now, today being a Tuesday, we are glad that you have chosen to start off your morning right here with us. My name is Vivian Ndegwa, and allow me to give you a quote just to start off that day. And the quote says, "Learn from yesterday, live for today as you hope for tomorrow." Mike, good morning.
Good morning, first of all, and that is very powerful, very important quote to start off the day. And also, Victor, that conversation is very timely, given that now we are starting officially the 2025-2026 financial year. What does the economy portend for us as a country? So that is a very interesting conversation that I invite you to tune in right here on Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migu. Remember, you can be part of every conversation happening right here. We are at KBC Channel 1 on all our social media platforms. This is the gold standard of starting your morning. Good morning, Marie.
Very good morning to you, Mike, and to all of you joining us here in Nairobi and across the country. My name is Marie Ambo, and definitely a lot lined up for you in the news, including the sad story about Boniface Kariuki passing, and masked vendor shot during the Gen Z protest. That is, Boniface Kariuki succumbs to brain injuries inflicted through a close-range police bullet shot to his head. As top detective Ahmed Mohammed says, blogger Diangoi Kinyagia is not in the custody of the DCI and not negotiable. Deputy President Kindiki says the government will not trade off the country's stability for political popularity. We begin the bulletin with the sad story of the 22-year-old masked vendor Boniface Mwangi Kariuki, who was shot at close range during the June 17th demonstrations in Nairobi, and that is he's dead. According to Jonah Kariuki Nyambura, his son passed on earlier yesterday at around 3:15 p.m. He had been in the ICU at the Kenyatta National Hospital since June the 17th, when he was shot in the city center. During his stay at the hospital, Kariuki accumulated a bill of 3.6 million shillings, which the family says they cannot afford to pay. Let's get more details of that story.
After days of back and forth at the Kenyatta National Hospital, following the shooting of the Yakini in Nairobi streets during the 17th June protest, the family of masked vendor Boniface Kariuki were dealt a blow today with the news of the death of the Yakin 22-year-old Boniface Mwangi Kariuki. After fighting for his life for 13 days at intensive care unit at Kenyatta National Hospital, Kariuki breathed his last at 3:15 p.m. Monday. Eunice Kirago, Boniface's grandmother, says just yesterday the hospital said that he was brain dead. Over the last 13 days that Boniface was in the hospital, he has accumulated a hospital bill of over 3 million shillings. The family, however, faults the hospital, saying they expected the communication of their son's death yesterday and did not see the point in waiting for that communication today.
Tukiangalia hivyo walikuwa wakijua tu Boni was normal, lakini sijui kwa nini they were fearing to say it. Juu yesterday wangetuambia vizuri that Boni is gone, instead of taking us loud, and we were expecting this. Kwa hivyo next time, hata kama sio hivyo ni professional ya hospitali, juu tutayarisha jana, wangetuambia tu. Juu ile kilio tutalia leo ndio tugerie tu hata jana.
They knew what is coming on. They knew what we were expecting, but they didn't want to say it. Even the very moment when we asked after the second operation, why is he not responding? They didn't say much.
The family led by Boniface's father are now demanding for justice and payment of the accumulated bill in hospital.
Yule askari ameua kijana yetu. Kuanzia sasa awekwe ndani na astakiwe na manda, kwa sababu hii sio manslaughter, hii ni manda. Ameua kijana, kwa hivyo wanastahili kwanza akamatwe na awekwe ndani.
Tunataka kuwashukuru wananchi wote. Tumejua mmesimama na sisi. Hata saa hii msimame na sisi tu. Sababu hatuna njia, hatuna mwelekeo, tunashindwa ni wapi, tuko confused.
They revealed that Mwangi was a breadwinner of the family and his demise is a big loss to the family.
Unasikia vibaya juu tulikuwa tunasaidiana Juu saa ingine watoto wakifukuzwa shule kama mimi sina pesa, saa ingine alikuwa anarushia watoto, hata watoto wenyewe wameumia roho.
Now, post-mortem on the bodies of 2 men who died during the recent Gen Z demonstrations in Emali, that is Makueni County, reveals that they died from gunshot injuries. According to the report, Garson Mutisia, 33, and Makao Mwaluko, that is 23, were separately killed by a bullet that penetrated through the chest, exiting from the back. The 2 families, while confirming the outcome of the autopsy, now want justice to be served. They want investigations into the incident be expedited and those behind the shooting arrested. The 2 families are calling on well-wishers to chip in financially and help them bury their loved ones.
We are requesting the government for further investigation, and also we also demand for the justice for my brother. So I'm also requesting if there is any person who is willing to support us for the burial process, as we are still waiting for the justice of my brother, so I can just chip in and assist us.
Tumeridhika na matokeo yake, na tunaamini ya kwamba vitengo mbalimbali za uchunguzi ambazo zimekuwa hapa zitahakikisha ya kwamba haki imetendeka.
Detectives have denied holding blogger and activist, that is Ndiangui Kinyagia, who went missing on the 21st of June, urging anyone with information on his whereabouts to alert the authorities. Now, DCI boss Ahmed Mohammed said Kinyagia was a person of interest for publishing a controversial program for the June 21st protest. He, however, says they have not been able to find him to record his statement. This, as he revealed, they are also closing in on the financiers of the 25th June protest and distractions, and will not hesitate to arrest anyone found culpable. Here is Abdi Aziz Hashim with the details.
With over 20 counties still reeling from the events of June 25th, detectives say they are closing in on the planners, financiers, and orchestrators of the deadly protest that led to the demise of over 10 Kenyans.
And we are actively pursuing the key planners, and we have the names of the perpetrators.
In a brief on the events of the 25th, DCI boss Ahmed Mohammed denied they were holding blogger and activist Ndiangui Kinyagia, who went missing from his house in Kinyagia County on June 22nd.
Ndiangui is not under the custody of the National Police Service. He is a person of interest to us, and wherever he is, I will urge that he submits himself and that he surrenders to the nearest police station.
Amin says he remains a person of interest, asking anyone with information on his whereabouts to come forward. The DCI boss further said they will not hesitate to prosecute planners of the chaos, saying as at now they had not summoned the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua for questioning.
Rigathi Gachagua does not enjoy any immunity against prosecution.
He revealed they had identified leaders behind the violence and will not hesitate to prosecute those found culpable.
If in our investigations he is found to have been involved in any criminal activity, perpetrated any criminal activity, aided or abetted any criminal activity, then appropriate action will be taken against Rigathi Gachagua.
So far, 485 suspects were arrested in connection with the chaos, of which 448 suspects have already been charged, while 37 are still under investigations.
A well-coordinated network of criminal actors infiltrated and hijacked these demonstrations.
Amin noted the said suspects are faced with numerous charges among them.
The charges range from murder, terrorism, rape, gang rape, arson, obstruction of police officers while on duty, breaking and stealing, robbery, and as well robberies with violence.
He also revealed they have recovered one firearm stolen from Kikuyu police station during the demos.
The G3 rifle that was stolen from Kikuyu police station was used in the commission of violent robberies within Naivasha police station.
We head to the corridors of justice where 18 protesters arrested during Wednesday's Gen Z protest in Olkalau, Nyandara County, will know their fate on 21 days detention, that is today. This as the investigating officer in the case found himself at pains to explain why a 16-year-old student was held with adults in a cell, with the magistrate ordering the minor's unconditional release. Meanwhile, Kibera Law Court will rule on Wednesday on 21 days detention for 3 activists alleged to have planned Wednesday's demonstrations. Letua Deborah gives us the details.
Protesters arrested during the June 25th demonstrations on Wednesday were arraigned at different law courts today. At Olkalau Law Court, an investigating officer was put to task to explain the reason for holding a minor together with adults in a cell. Principal Magistrate Judy Kastantuku ordered the release of the minor, with the 18 others being held at Oljororok Police Station, pending the ruling set for Tuesday, 1st July 2025. Defense lawyers opposed the application, arguing lack of sufficient grounds.
The court has been gracious enough. It has listened to us. It has listened to the other side. So, my request is that let people exercise all the rights that are granted in the Constitution, including Article 37 rights. Right to picket, rights to demonstrate, as long as somebody is unarmed and is not violent.
In Kibera, 3 activists John Mulingwa Nzau, Mark Amiani, and Francis Mudunge Mwangi will remain in custody until Wednesday for a bail ruling. The DCI, who are seeking 21 days, alleges the activists use social media to plan illegal acts.
We urge you to find that the prosecution has established sufficient basis. In other words, appropriate justification for this court to order that each of the respondents is held further to enable us to complete our investigations.
The defense opposes the request, calling the detention punitive and unfounded, noting no arrest warrants were issued, nor evidence of them being a flight risk presented.
I have had a laughable argument that has been made that they were caught in a bus going to Mombasa and they were fleeing. Fleeing from what? Your Honor, that paragraph of the affidavit must indicate that these individuals were called and told they were persons of interest, and because of that information, they got into a bus to flee.
In Kiambu County, 7 youths were arraigned before the Kiambu Law Court, facing criminal charges following the violent demonstrations that took place on June 25th in Kikuyu constituency. Kiambu Senior Principal Magistrate was informed that the accused are under investigations for a range of criminal offences, including arson, robbery with violence, shop breaking and theft. The court ordered the suspect be held at Kikuyu Police Station for a period of 7 days to facilitate thorough investigations.
Still on matters protest, Deputy President Kindiki has faulted a section of leaders, politicians and diplomats who seemingly celebrated the destruction and mayhem witnessed during last week's demonstrations. Kindiki has warned that national security is not negotiable and that the government will not trade off the stability and security of the country for political popularity.
The second in command was in Mitaboni, Kathiani, Machakos County for his continued empowerment forums. It is here that Kindiki lashed out at leaders who he alleges seek to milk political capital from the mayhem witnessed last Wednesday during the Gen Z demonstrations.
Hiyo sio demokrasia. Hiyo ni fujo. There is a difference between democracy and anarchy. Democracy ni kujieleza. Democracy ni mtu kusema mimi natofautiana na serikali ama kukosoa serikali useme hii jambo la ufisadi, ili jambo hatutaki, na kuandamana na kujieleza.
Ni lazima tutengeneze sheria ambayo itatuelekeza vile tutafanya peaceful and unarmed processions and protests in our country.
Kindiki says the government remains resolute on the protection of national security, even if it would occasion a political risk.
We don't mind if our popularity is affected by protecting Kenya. But we cannot step back and leave this country to anarchists and those people who don't believe in the peaceful resolution of national problems.
He further faulted a section of diplomats whom he says appeared to support the mayhem, saying government will not negotiate where acts of lawlessness are witnessed.
Kwa hivyo hata nchi zingine ambao wanatuhubiria hapa kwao ni wakali sana. Ikifika mambo ya usalama wa taifa hakuna mjadala. Wanasema sawa, muko na uhuru wa kujieleza, lakini lazima muwe na amani.
On the call by stakeholders to convene a national dialogue to discuss the Gen Z grievances, Professor Kindiki says the government has not shut its doors.
I am here to confirm to you, we are taking that input very seriously. We are listening, and we are going to reform as much as we can to make sure we align the governance of this country with the interest of the public, including our young people.
Rais wa Kenya amesema hatuwezi wacha constituency yote nyuma, whether ilipigia yeye kura ama kupiga, tutasonga sisi sote pamoja.
Msikubali kuambiwa na mtu muende maandamano.
President William Ruto is urging United Nations member states to support ongoing reforms in the international financial system to make it fairer and more efficient, speaking at the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development in Spain. Ruto said there is need for consensus on development-oriented sovereign debt framework where public debt becomes a tool for growth rather than a trap for debt distress.
Called on United Nations members to support the outcome document of the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development being held in Seville, Spain. President Ruto said the document lays the groundwork for renewed commitment to multilateralism and equitable growth.
It is imperative to have debt sustainability and credit assessments that are accurate, objective, and long-term oriented.
The president called for consensus on international financial system reforms to make it fairer and more efficient. Credit rating agencies have been advised to revise their approach in evaluating African economies.
There is now consensus on the need for a development-oriented sovereign debt architecture, where public debt is an instrument for development, not a trap for distress.
Leaders emphasized on the importance of effective debt management and crisis prevention, including transparency, responsible borrowing and lending, and accurate, objective, and long-term credit assessment.
What we've tried to do over the last couple of years is respond with a set of reforms aimed at one simple goal. And this is the word that Bob used: be a better partner to our private sector and government clients. So, for example, We've cut project approval times by a third, from 19 to 13 months, with some projects now getting approved in under 30 days.
These developing countries are walking a tightrope between defaulting on debts, defaulting on their efforts to achieve sustainable development, and defaulting on the promise to provide acceptable standards of living to their people. The consequences are serious.
The President called for governance reforms of the International Monetary Fund to ensure easier access to precautionary instruments, lower lending rates, and improve utilization of special drawing rights.
I look at sports now, where the International Sports Centre Kasarani Stadium has officially been handed over to the 2024 Africa Nations Championship CHAN Local Organizing Committee following the completion of the renovation works ahead of the Continental Showpiece slated for this August. Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Voria said that the focus will now shift to preparations for the national team. Harambee Stars.
Nyayo National Stadium in Kasarani will go down in history as the first stadiums in Kenya to host the 2024 Africa Nations Championship. The stadiums, which have been undergoing a facelift, are now complete. On Monday afternoon, the Sports Cabinet Secretary Salim Vuria handed over the Kasarani Stadium to the CHAN 2024 Local Organizing Committee.
Kenya tumepata heshima kubwa kwamba ndio tutaandaa ile mchezo ule wa mwisho kabisa, finali. Kwa hivyo leo tutapokea funguo ya kiwanja hii kama ishara ya kwamba sasa kazi hapa imekamilika.
Mvuria confirmed that Nyayo Stadium will be complete in 2 weeks' time as the renovations work for the perimeter wall are almost complete.
Hayo kwa sababu kulikuwa na additional recommendations tujenge ukuta. Imebaki sehemu ya siku 2 hiyo ukuta imalizike, na ukuta iko nje ya ground, basically kuimarisha tu usalama, lakini kazi ambayo imebaki.
2024 Africa Nations Championship CHAN will be Uganda and Tanzania from the 2nd to the Kenya is preparing to make pegged on Group A along Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Well, that story brings us to the end of the bulletin this morning. Thank you so much, as always, for your company and always interacting with us on Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mariambo, and up next is Victor Lowe. He is with his guest already in studio, just looking at issues of people and politics. For more news updates, do log up to our website and also our social media platforms.
They say the earth without art would just be, get it? We circumnavigate the globe and traverse the local scene to bring you art and culture at their very best. From fine art, culinary art, performing arts, and even cultural events, you name it, and we have got you covered. My name is Kevin Kasarani, and I will be serving you this and much, much more each and every Friday at 8 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
It's Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Morocco.
Feel the pulse of a continent.
where Africa's fiercest women warriors clash for glory in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations 2024. Africa's top teams, one crown. Morocco hosts once more, ready to etch new legends into history. Rising stars, one stage to shine.
And it is the Copper Queen. They have been waiting for this moment. Here's a chance for a second. South African lead by 2 goals to 0 in this final, and he'll never higher.
This is more than football, it's African excellence. It's women's power. Don't miss WAFCON 2024. Live.
Was given an assignment whereabouts.
Huyu can do anything.
Nikushua siye, juu niko namfuatilia.
The only person who cares about my sister's safety is me.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Because Glenn is missing and now Ruth.
Wait, what? Glenn is missing?
Mom, uko kwa Kathy.
Mom, relax.
How comes round hii mnakubali kupatia mtu pesa stranger from nowhere?
You're not a stranger, wewe ni caretaker wetu.
Very good. Na caretaker yuko na right ya kuitisha pesa ya nyumba? Atengwe. How can you trust a human being?
By the way,
yes.
Kwani hao walikuwa namna gani?
People are different.
Wewe ni tofauti sana.
What?
Wewe unatrustiwa, wewe ana take advantage ya hiyo trust.
Nikisema hii mahakama unaniwekelea pesa zako. Mimi ndio nilikula za nyumba, kwani wao wanakuja kunilipa kwangu, mimi ndio landlord wa hii nyumba.
Hakuna pesa yangu umekula. Umekula pesa ya wapangaji.
Welcome back. It's now 8 minutes past 7 a.m. Today on People and Politics, we're talking about mambo ya shilingi, economy. Being the 1st of July 2025, we are in the new financial year, and the 4.2 trillion budget that was signed into law now officially takes effect. And now we are going to take a look at basically how we are going to survive in the next 1 year in this country, how the money is going to be collected, how you're going to spend it, how government is going to steer us in the next 12 months. My guest already in studio, FCPA Hesbon Omolu, is a council member. Is Park already in studio? FCPA, good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
We want to start where we left two and a half weeks ago?
Yeah.
Exactly. Karibu sana. Kevin Osido, Executive Director of the County Governor's Watch, is also here. We also left at some point and we are finishing the journey today. Kevin, karibu sana.
We are finishing the journey.
We are finishing the journey. And Professor Emmanuel Butizia, who went, you
disappeared.
We found you.
Here I am.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you so much. He's an economist by profession and a professor in that respect. So today, gentlemen, let's talk about the economy. And 1st of July, allow me to start with Hesbon. Now that we are here, just a recap of what we talked about last time. And a quick one now that we are on 1st of July. What should you expect?
Quite a lot of things.
Yes.
First is to take note that for the first time in all 2 years, we've had a finance bill that has generally passed smoothly with very minimal opposition to it. I think other than the issue of privacy of data, which was a key area of concern, most of the proposals were very friendly to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Including the reprieve on the gratuity and even benefits at the end of service. So I think a lot of things have generally been positive. The other areas that were a bit controversial were the commodities were being moved from zero-rated status to exempt. Quite a number were ring-fenced by Parliament, and therefore, generally what has been passed as a finance bill that has now been signed into law speaks positively to where we are headed, and more towards administrative measures to increase tax revenue collection rather than additional taxes. So I would look at that as positive, especially looking back to where we were last year when we had the massive protest that almost brought this country to a halt. I think that is a positive thing. The negative issue is that we still had the anniversary to remember those who perished last year in the unfortunate incidents of June 25th. And of course, the aftermath of that has been one that sends wrong signals to the economy. Those would be the negatives I would speak to, not necessarily directly related to the finance bill, but just historical, touching into where we've come from. So in a nutshell, from an overall perspective, I would look at it the way they say proverbially that you're either an optimist or a pessimist. So the glass is half empty or half full. I would look at it as half full, which means we are on the right trajectory towards getting better. What are the indicators? Probably look at the general performance of certain sectors of the economy that have not traditionally done well. When you look at entities such as Kenya Airways, you see that Kenya Airways has moved from negative 22 billion loss to 5.4 billion profit. When you see Kenya Power, which ensures we have energy across the country, having its shares trading at 8 shillings, up from 2 shillings some 2 years back, it sends some positive signals. Where the rubber still meets the road, that we have to really ask ourselves hard questions, and that is where the half empty comes in. With all these positive indications, the interest rates going down, all these nice signals that shows that the framework looks good, there is still no money in the pockets of most of Kenyans. And therefore, we talk about how do we distribute the growth of economy across every segment. I think that is where we must ask ourselves, and I'm glad we have economists here, how do we ensure that we have growth that is felt by everybody within the economy and not certain sectors or at the top, and then at the bottom, majority still feel a lot of pinch.
I think you've raised a very good question, and we'll answer all of us the best way we can. But Kevin, from where we left last time, now we have, it's now law, and it takes effect the stroke of midnight. So what should we project the next financial year that is now?
Of course, thank you so much for the opportunity. The biggest projection should be getting Kenyans to feel the positive sides of this glass that is half full. And if you talk to a majority of Kenyans, the interest is in putting money in their pockets, in dealing with critical access to critical services, health, education, food on their tables, and then basically just being meaningful towards also raising revenue into this thing we are calling the budget. Because this money that we are talking about has to come from somewhere. And so part of the biggest concerns beyond just getting Kenyans to feel comfortable insofar as the budget is concerned is also to look at the macro sectors. And I believe that the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics has done well in terms of helping understand the sectors that I would call macro boosters to the economy. But therefore, if you look at how the budget is done and how resources are allocated, for example, the education sector got more among the better, what we call the bottom-up economic transformation agenda of Kenya Kwanza. Education was among those big winners. But if you look at how that relates to the everyday running of the economy, and therefore its contribution to boosting the economic projections, revenue generation, among others, there are still challenges.
Yeah.
And so how we deal with those challenges, I think, is something that we must be very keen to look at. Number two, of course, health also got quite a big boost. I think it was the second biggest earner in this particular budget. But again, if you look at the details around health and access to healthcare, Kenyans, a majority of Kenyans still indicate that they are struggling despite SHA being in place and being able to address a number of issues. So there are lots of conversations, therefore, that the government must have with key stakeholders, including county governments, where really the bulk of healthcare is domiciled, and how county governments are also supported to be able to address healthcare needs, and therefore translating into President William Ruto's promise to ensure that healthcare works. Number three, in my view, is youth employment. And again, there was no big commitments insofar as the 2025-2026 budget is concerned. We saw a lot of investment in social protection for the elderly, but I think there was a bit of a miss in terms of youth engagement and how we invest in employment creation or dividends, financial dividends or programs that therefore head towards scaling up opportunities for youth to get employed. I know that the president is very keen to ensure that young people have something that therefore puts monies into their pockets. I remember him in Homa Bay saying that Kazi Mtaani for young people is coming back. But if you look at the commitments in the budget, you don't really see them from a very close end. So it is important that as we look at the projections for 2025-2026, we look at those mega boosters of the budget, and also how we deal with the fourth thing, which I think is loopholes. Because as Bon said, as Esbon rightfully said, we have not attracted, this budget has not attracted new taxes, and the expectation is that the monies that would have been accrued from the new taxes are going to be found or are going to be raised through certain aspects of strengthening gaps such as corruption, maybe pilferages that we continue to see from both national ministries, departments, and so it has to be very clear around how we want to address these pilferages. And I think one of the things that Mheshimiwa Mbadi has brought up, which again we wait to see how it works, because some of these digital platforms have been tested, particularly through IFMIS, among others, and he said that he is introducing a one-stop shop for procurement. So how that is going to also address corruption and even delays in payments, because we also saw a big gap in terms of addressing pending bills of this particular budget. So there are gaps that I believe that need to inform how we move forward, and therefore also how they get addressed. And lastly, I think for me is the county governments.
which I'll just hold that.
Yeah.
I'll come to that because, of course, the level of devolution rests with them. But Prof, when you look at 4.2 trillion, to Wanjiku, that's a lot of money. But to the government, that is what is needed to steer the economy.
I think, just to add on to what Esbon and Kevin have said, it is important to look at the budget in itself from a macro perspective, and also compare it moving backwards to what we've seen over the last several years. I would say that, one, we've gotten it right somehow, that we have put all these structures around the budget of 4.2 trillion shillings to address the challenges that we are facing as a country, and that is in line, as Kevin has put it, with the bottom of economic transformation agenda. The key, pillars of that agenda, that really, if we address that or we implement that, we'll be able to address most of the concerns that Kenyans are facing today. I would say the following. One, the challenge of economic growth, or the economic challenges that we're facing in Kenya today, are not particular to Kenya. We are seeing all these challenges across board in many other countries. And actually, when you compare Kenya with most of the countries, you realize that Kenya is ahead of most of these countries. And I think I like what Esbon said, that you see Kenya, coming up amongst the best in the world. That, of course, the shilling has stabilized. That, of course, we are now the largest economy in East and Central Africa. We are among the top 10. Actually, we are top 6 in the continent. That is something that will tell you that we are not doing badly off as a country, because if really we were doing that badly off, some of these positive parameters that we're seeing will not be something that we'll be seeing in this country.
Yeah.
And therefore we need to appreciate where we have come from and the efforts that the government of Kenya has put in place to ensure that we see whatever we are seeing today. Now, I think the most critical part, and this is one of the commitments that the government made, was pesa mfukoni. You know, when you talk about these big things, that, you know, GDP is growing, you know, we have all this, you know, the shilling is stable, you know, we are one of the largest economies. We talk about all these nice stories. At the end of the day, I would ask, as you know, as a farmer, how much money do I have in my pocket? Or how much has this translated into money in my pocket? And I think that is now where we should go to. That, you know, as a government and as stakeholders, we must push to ensure that that growth or these positive parameters, you know, are translating into positivity in the kind of lives that we see with our Kenyans. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the pillars that we've talked about, and of course the drivers of that development, the key element is improving the quality of life of our Kenyans. And if we are not able to do that, then all these big things that we're talking about will not take us anywhere. And I would say this,
yes.
you know, the CS, National Treasury, has done quite a good job, you know, comparing to what brought us to where we are last year, and of course the kind of finance bill that has gone through. We see very good sort of components that, if implemented properly and to the core, will take this country to the next level. But the challenge again is, you know, we have all this money, we're talking about 4.2 trillion shillings. If, suppose we have all this money on the table, are the governance systems or the structures that we have in place able to put this money to proper use? Or are we going to see that money getting to the pockets of a few that of course will now sort of curtail that money getting to the bottom of the pyramid?
Hesbon, can you answer that? no party.
I think
as a taxpayer,
I think, of course, as a taxpayer, there are quite a number of concerns that you're having. And I agree with my colleagues, panelists here, that one, everything looks good, but where the rubber meets the road is a common man.
Correct.
Why is this common man not feeling this benefit that then leads to people agitating that we are worse off than we were previously? When in reality, as somebody who understands numbers, I'll tell you we are better off. The reason why this is happening is that certain aspects of growth or how an economy grows may not be visible during the nascent stages. And I take us all back to the Kibaki regime. The first 5 years were very difficult, and people said, this man doesn't know what he's doing. But later on, we started seeing the impact. I remember I was a consultant then. The number of referrals I was getting from financial institutions, people who needed us to work with them to secure facilities. Banks started hawking loans by their premises. They were no longer sitting pretty. They had so much money because the economy had been tweaked in a certain way. And it took time.
What was the trick then?
The trick then was that...
What the magic?
The magic was very simple. Gradually reduce borrowing from the private sector. And how do you do that? You move towards a more balanced budget, continuously reduce the deficit so that your borrowing goes down. So that was a key pillar that helped the country take the right direction. Now, come 2013 going forward, we reversed this indirectly. First, we went on mega projects instantly. With the borrowing that was short-term, we reduced the age of our overall public debt in terms of how long it takes to pay them. That put a lot of pressure on our cash flows. Then we rebased our economy then. By rebasing the economy, we moved from low-income country to middle income. That may just sound as a language, but to those who understand, it kept us off certain low, cheap interest loans that countries like Tanzania can access. We cannot access them because we are considered middle income. We were then ushered into the space of the Eurobonds, which then allowed Kenya to borrow certain loans that did not have so many conditions. And that is where corruption and all these things come in. So now where we are, things are looking good, but why is it not being felt? I go back to the question you were asking. Number one, we have raised our savings as a country from about 300 billion all the way from the setting up of this country in 1963 to almost 600. We've doubled in 2 years. What does that mean? We've mopped up 300 billion out of the savings of people who are working in this country through NSSF. What that also means is that while we have secured their future when they retire, we've denied them certain resources they were able to use now as disposable income. Therefore, they feel it in their pocket. But the flip side of it is this. Our expenditure on social protection has consistently been going up because as soon as you retire, you get to the 60s, you become vulnerable, you wait for check or support from the government. And that is why you see 41 billion in the current budget towards social protection. Now, if you are able to gradually increase savings as a country, you will reduce your budget on social protection gradually over time. So that's a positive. The benefit of reducing social protection over time cannot be felt today by the person who is suffering in the payslip. And that is why we must then ask ourselves, how are we supporting this person? Now let's go to the majority of the common man, the farmer and the business person. These people are owed close to 600-700 billion by the national government over the years. Additionally, counties owe them another 200 billion. Now that is money belonging to these people that they cannot access, and therefore they are suffering. Some of them are facing foreclosure if they took loans from banks. Some of them have even committed suicide because they are struggling. And therefore, as a business person and somebody in the formal or informal sector that is not maybe employed, I'm struggling as a business person. Remember, most business people are in Mashinani, the 47 counties. They've done business with the counties, they have not been paid. Now, these people are suffering. Then now come to the employee. The employee, apart from contributing to the 300 billion rise in our retirement savings, which they contribute through NSSF, we have now rated them through affordable housing and through social health funding for everybody to be healthy in the country. Now, do we all have to be healthy in the country and access healthcare? Yes. But who is funding it? Largely, it's the government through the budget, and to those who are employed formally that the government can be able to reach out to, majority about 4 million out of the 20 million plus.
But based on what you've said, FPA, tightening of that rope, is it an intentional move by the government, or what is it all about?
It is intentional for the good of the country.
Yes.
And I agree with the principle. The only thing is that when you do too many things within a very short time, the effect can be so devastating and can cause unrest. And that's why there's need for a bit of clawback. And I like what I've seen in the current Finance Act bill that is now signed, that among the things they've tried to do is allow all deductions to be deductible before taxation. That was not there before. Number two, they've raised for the purpose of employees, and for those who are in formal employment, this issue called per diem is very important. That per diem is what probably cushioned some of these employees working in government. That has been raised from 2,000 shillings to 10,000. So the tax-free per diem is now raised to 10,000. The 8,000 addition is massive to that employee. And those are now the safety nets then that are able to cushion the common man. I would also expect that in the long term, once we set the housing program in motion and we are able to generate the component that supports social affordable housing for the common man that may not be able to afford, especially the slum upgrading projects there, those that then support those who are working and are able to buy houses, once we are able to set this fund to be on a stable phase, maybe in another 3-4 years' time, I would imagine that we'll reverse some of those so that we ease even the pressure more on the...
A very good breakdown. A very good breakdown. Should we just close the show?
No. We cannot.
Not yet. Kevin has not yet talked about the counties. I'll be so unfair. But gentlemen, we are looking at a projection of 4.7% GDP growth. Good or bad, Kevin?
Based on previous performances, it's a positive trend, positive trajectory. And I believe that the kind of indicators that are being used are indicators that also take note of both global shocks, regional shocks, and also local shocks around here. And then part of those shocks, of course, are things that we have almost zero control over.
Yeah.
But some of them are things that I believe that we can be able to do. And that particular GDP growth, in my view, is also based on revenue projections, which really need to address how we raise money to finance the budget. And so I'm sure that National Treasury, together with KNBS, are looking at what has been done in the past. As Prof said, I think it's important to also look at what has happened in the past.
Yeah.
And you brought in former President Mwai Kibaki. And if you looked at where he picked the country in 2002, I think his regime is appointed in time when our GDP growth went to almost, I think, 5.7, 7.2, which was the highest if you look at performances. But that also looked at the optimism that Esbon is talking about, the glass being half full. And at that point in time, Kenyans were much more optimistic and people were hoping for a better life. And things were working, you know. It was a point when Kenyans would arrest police officers of corruption.
Yeah.
Kenyans would just say no to corruption. And many, so the revenues at Kenya, of course, the budget at that time was not as big as what we are experiencing now. And even the kind of sectors that were engaging, that Kenya was engaging in then, were not as big as what is happening right now. And so 4.7 in 2025, in my view, is positive, and with the hope that we'll continue to address some of these shocks and some of the challenges that we are experiencing, and even the gaps. I think one of the other things that probably Esbon did not address, and which President not William Ruto, but Mwai Kibaki, the late, may God rest his soul in peace, was bringing in stimulus packages to address this aspect of we are not filling in the money.
Yeah.
But if you look at progressive, I mean, the next governments after President Mwai Kibaki, President Uhuru Kenyatta told us that he was, well, to some extent, there are certain sectors that were still endowed with stimulus packages. And we even saw a lot of investment in youth, a lot of investment in MSMEs, a lot of investments in the agriculture sector. And so even manufacturing was one of the boosting sectors of the economy. President William Ruto came and said no stimulus packages, but of course he had other mechanisms to address the challenges that the economy was facing.
If I cut you short for a break, you know what it's all about?
Yes.
What is it all about?
The tea and the hot water.
Very good. We'll be right back. It's tea time. It's tea time. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Nini utanipa kizunguzungu, suka chini.
Nilidhani kila kitu iko sawa, lakini wapi? Hey!
Unamaanisha nini? Mimi najua nasikiaga nimekuchokesha sana. Lakini ni muda tu kidogo imebaki, kidogo sana. Mimi nitakufa. Mtanizika mnisahau.
What if what we had is broken? What if we are broken?
What if you're the only ones who can fix each other?
Sifurahishwi na hiyo uhusiano wenyu mko nao na Jenny. Hata kidogo.
Oh, come on. Jenny is 21 years and above.
Hello, fabulous ladies. Welcome to the talk show that's all about sisterhood, empowerment, and unfiltered conversation. We will be focusing on women. We believe in women.
We are really changing.
We are creating a safe space for women to connect, thrive, and share.
Just because you're a woman on a bike, you're labeled in a certain way.
It's not just a talk show, it's a movement.
When they are standing, we need to stand out.
From heartwarming tales to hilarious adventures.
They could ask me, Catherine, why are you learning?
We are turning the spotlight on women who are breaking barriers in their individual fields.
You have to have a vision.
You are the
leaders of Kenya today.
Keeping it honest and relatable.
Mental health is real.
Yes.
Where there is no communication, there is no relationship.
Join the sisterhood on KBC TV for Dada's show.
19 nations will compete in the Total Energies CAF African Nations Championship, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania 2024, which will be staged from 2nd to 30th August 2025. Amongst the 4 groups in the tournament A to D, Kenya is pooled in Group A, together with Morocco, Angola, DR Congo and Zambia.
Algeria from the set piece, the header is on target, but it's...
This unique competition featuring the best locally based players from across the continent definitely has something for everyone. Just bring your A game as you let it flow live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Yeah. We all have our cups of tea. No, let's continue. Let's continue. So, welcome back. Prof, let's talk about our economic resilience. I mean, as a country, we faced a lot of challenges, all right? The last year was that litmus test that I think for the Cabinet Secretary, that is John Mbadi, he gave a different approach, one of public participation. He tried to capture the minds of Wanjiku, who is the main taxpayer in this case. Now, but let's talk about our economic resilience. Amidst all the global challenges and even, you know, back home, are we able to wade through that murky water in the next financial year?
That's a very, very important question. And I just want to go back a little bit to 2020 when COVID-19 struck. And compare, look at what happened in Kenya and what happened across, to other countries across the continent. You realize that Kenya came out stronger than most countries in the continent because of the maturity of the markets or the economic sectors in this country compared to most countries in the continent. This, of course, will be looked at from different perspectives. But one of them is, of course, the middle class, which in our case is fairly big, but not big enough, big compared to other countries in the continent, but not big enough to give us the kind of sustainability or the kind of resilience that we need. But also the private sector in this country, has been, growing and maturing. That is why, even when you do all these qualities that we see in the country, we always come out, strong. We always come out with the dynamics of the economy, fairly okay, because the country is more run by the private sector than what would expect in many other countries. And in mature economies, when you go to advanced countries like Japan, these are countries that don't care who becomes the president of that country. They don't care about politics. Things move, whether there is a president or not. Things move fairly smoothly, and this is what we are seeing in Kenya. As years pass by, in a way that we are growing, but we expect more to be done to ensure that we get there. And for that resilience to happen, given that Kenya's youthful population is very high. Just like in the continent, I think Africa has the highest youthful population globally, with almost 500 million of us being below the age of 35, which is projected to grow up to around 1 billion by 2050. Now, the dynamics of looking at the economy, vis-a-vis the growth of the youth is critical, because if we did not take care of the needs of the youth, we are going to face the challenges that we see in most countries, not just the Gen Zs in Kenya, but across board, because the demos that we see in Kenya are not just in Kenya. People are coming up rioting and saying that they're not being listened to and their needs are not being addressed. And that is why the financing bill of 2025 was very critical, to ensure that at least we see where we place the youth in the the elements of the bill that were presented to the Parliament, and of course
where were they placed?
One of them is the startup. You know, when you look at we have talked about the taxes.
Yes.
I think Buddy was very smart to ensure that, of course, he looks at where to place this tax freeze across.
Yes.
One of them is the startups. And, you know, startups are sort of placed closer to youth.
Yeah.
And when you make startups tax-free, then it motivates you know, young men and women to venture into new businesses. Because what you see in Gen Zs, which is different from the Gen Xs and Gen Ys, is that they are more innovative and they're more proactive, and they take risks. They are ready to go there and start their own ventures, you know, around, you know, the fourth industrial or the fifth industrial revolution, the digital economics or the digital economy, and so on and so forth. And therefore, when we look at what we want them to do, we must make sure that we incentivize that process to ensure that they do exactly that. The other thing is certainly, of course, the look into the growth of industries. I think that was one thing that my fellow panelists have raised here, that even as we look at putting money to the pockets of people, we need to ask ourselves where that money is going to come from. And certainly, it is looking into growing industries, which will drive the economy in a way that will create decent jobs, and specifically for the youth. When you look at what we refer to, you know, 2002, Kibaki came to power. 2002, 2007, you could not feel the impact of Kibaki economics then. Because, of course, he was trying to set up the foundation for economic you know, prosperity. But then when you look at what happened in 2002, when he took over, the economy was at the bare bottom. And there was no bottom that we could have gone to after where we were at that particular time. So I think on one point he was lucky, because he came at a point where we could only grow. Okay. You know, and then, of course, he put his, you know, fundamentals right in 2007, after 5 years. And that is when you saw what happened, you know, in his 10 years of his presidency. That is different from what we're saying today. You know, people are complaining that nothing is happening because they expected too much. We expected miracles to happen within the first.
Who expected
100 years?
You see, you're flipping the ball.
No, we Kenyans,
we were promised.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were promised.
Because we promised. We expected every year that 100 days, we were going to see, you know, money in our pockets. You know, borders, mama bogas, you know, having money in their pockets. That never happened, because part of it was politics, but part of it was not understanding the exact space that you know, the new regime was going to operate in, given the global economic dynamics, which were cutting across. Because, as I said, even by 2022, even now, we have not fully recovered from COVID-19, and therefore, money that used to come before 2020 is not coming in anymore. And if we are not innovative enough as a country in the finance bill, in the kind of policies that we pass, then we will remain in the same cycle of problems that the country is facing today.
Well, Prof. Economic resilience, FCPA, in your own understanding, are we able to work on that in the next 1 year?
I think we are able to do that.
Yeah.
And one of the things we can do as a country, once we realize where the challenges are, and I think the recent protests, they say in every cloud there's a silver lining. There are lessons we learn, even from the recent demonstrations, that there's a very large pool of young people who have nothing to do. And we see them in certain political circles every day. They are following politicians even to get something. I like what the government has put in terms of 5 billion for the climate works program, that is allowing our youths within our urban settings to be meaningfully engaged, cleaning up our environment, doing a few things, and also learning the business skills so that they're able to do certain things with themselves. I think that if scaled up, because it's targeting about 113,000 youths across the country, if that can be scaled up within the year, I would dare, as a government, probably in the next budget cycle, they would look at probably adding an additional 5 or 10 B, so that then we're able to scale up. Because for now, it's just one youth per household. So there are a lot of limitations. So when, in actual sense, in most of our informal settings, you'll find that one family has 5, 6 children, and they could be probably around the same age set. So if you pick one, leave the other, you still not solved quite the challenge we have. So I would look at that as part of what we need to do going forward, so that we can have an economy that's resilient and also avoid the kind of losses that we've seen. One day of massive protests and demonstrations and burning of our infrastructure and private property, in terms of economic cost, is not even 10 billion. It's massive. So we can avoid that. How do we do that? Let's give these young men hope. Let's show them that while we are trying to fix certain things that are not right in the economy, there is something for you to go home with every day. The 500 shillings means a lot to that young man in that. Now, as you do that, those things we need to fix in our economy. Agricultural economy. Agriculture and farming remains very, very important. We must allocate enough resources so that we're able to produce enough food, but then now go to the next cycle. Like now we are expecting bumper harvest. How do we ensure that we prevent post-harvest losses? How do we then go to those business aggregation centers across the entire country that we had targeted to build so that the value chain in the agricultural sector is scaled up?
You can actually tie that with MSMEs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I go now to the same thing with MSMEs, and I'm glad we were celebrating the other day how far we've been able to go in supporting our small and medium enterprises. But now here is a challenge for the MSMEs. The rate at which they borrow is still very high. Scaling up funding for the MSME sector is a challenge. And this now takes us back to our conscience as a nation. If you ask in this country, which sector thrives best over the last 2-3 years and even 5-6 years, is the financial services sector.
Yeah.
They're the biggest gainers. How are they making money? Because they are borrowing to government at very high rates. Now the government has deliberately, through strategy, through fiscal and measures they've taken, they've reduced the borrowing rate to about 8.5 something percent for the treasury bills and still slightly higher for the bonds. If that can be addressed and we have a conversation, and I'm glad the president, when he met the MSME in KICC last week, also challenged our financial institutions. If we are at a stage where you are lending us at 9% or 8%, why do you still go in the same breath to lend to Wanjiku at 18-17%? There is no business that can make reasonable profit when it is borrowing at 17%. The blue chip companies of the globe, the return on investment for an investor is largely average at 10%.
Yeah.
The best companies in the world are giving the owners 10%. Why are you asking me to pay you 17%? Is it practical for me to make money? And that is a honest conversation we must have with banks. I know they count risk, all those factors. The way we price lending in this country is wrong. We must go back to the drawing board. If you want to support the MSMEs for this economy to thrive, as a banker, as an investor in the financial services sector, can you be comfortable with between 7 to 10% return on your investment? If yes, can we be able to lend at a reasonable rate? Let the government help us and help the financial services sector with tracing and support towards the sector, with creating an enabling environment for the businesses that borrow from banks to also survive. That also means that we must also ask ourselves, what is the cost of the key drivers of business or manufacturing? It is about labor. How do we reduce labor costs without hurting the common man? I like what the affordable housing is coming with. Because then, if I pay my employee 50,000, he can be comfortable to live in a house of 10,000 because we've addressed the housing challenge. And the cost of living, commodities they buy on a day-to-day basis through dealing with issues of inflation. So if that is addressed, then the business person then asks the next question, what is my energy cost? If energy costs continues to remain high, I know it is lower than it was 2 years ago. With all those factors mentioned, it has gone slightly lower because certain things have happened globally. But how then do we translate this so that the business person in the MSME sector is able to borrow at a reasonable rate, is able to make his or her own money and be able to repay the loan so that...
In just one word, is there a favorable environment for the MSMEs in the next financial year?
Currently, not quite. Yes, attempts are there. More needs to be done.
More needs to be done. Gentlemen, I don't know whether it's this tea or what, because time runs so fast. I have no idea. I want to talk about something here, Kevin. The devolved units, where Wanjiku now runs to every day. The governors were given the entire the money. The body said, okay, kila mtu akona pesa yake, so whatever you're going to do with it, you can settle all the bills. I mean, do they have money in the banks?
The answer is yes and no.
Okay.
Because we have about 25 counties that have received their disbursements up to April this year. And about and about 22 that haven't. Of course, it's given in bits and pieces based on vitu kwa ground, because we also have checks and balances from the Auditor General and also the control of budget. Now, that, in my view, really doesn't have to curtail service delivery, because the moment counties fail to get these resources into their accounts, many things happen. They begin to borrow from banks, where they pay commercial loans with very heavy repayment rates. Now, that affects a number of issues. It means that even the monies that were not budgeted for in their budgets, whether through supplementary or the main budget, get affected when it arrives, because you have to, of course, deal with payroll issues, work on emergencies where there are emergencies in the counties. So when the equitable share arrives, so the balance that is owed to the county arrives, you have to go back and repay. That already creates a gap of service delivery.
And of course, some of these are not able to do the on-source revenue.
And of course, the on-source revenue is a song that we have sung over and over again. But before I get to the on-source revenue, we also take note of other challenges, like legislative delays, passing of laws such as county allocation revenue bill, passage of laws such as county government's additional bill, which also continue to delay, these kind of disbursements. You remember that, for example, we had a case in court of the 10 billion roads maintenance levy fund, which the courts passed through, that is supposed to be disbursed to county governments. And 10 billion shillings to county government is a lot of money. Is a lot of money. In fact, their counties don't even get up to 10 billion. So if you are able to send the 10 billions and a law has to be put in place, which again is delayed because of either politics or because of mechanisms of parliament, etc. Then, of course, we have cash flow constraints, Victor, that really address challenges of prioritization between national government and county government. And this is largely based on, the better bottom-up economic transformation agenda and what is in the pulse of the president. So when you see counties going to State House, it is not for anything. It is largely to deal with the politics of prioritization of the man who we still imagine. By this constitution, the president of Kenya becomes very, very ceremonial, especially when it comes to issues of equitable share to counties and even running of government ministries, departments, and agencies. But I don't know why we still get clobbered back into this political goodwill that the president must love you to visit your county so many times for things to be seen to be happening. County governors, the County Governments Act refers to them as chief executive officers. So you imagine that you have this board that you are reporting to and not necessarily the political head who is the president of the day. Now, that really affects prioritization issues. And so when you see governors going and reading very long lists, that affects how they also perform internally, which now addresses issues of on-source revenue. The on-source revenue projection for our 47 counties is about 260 billion cumulatively per year. And not so many counties, not up to 10 counties, are doing very well. Of course, Nairobi here raises money, and then you see the controller of budget saying you have overspent it in foreign trips. So you ask yourself, where again are the priorities, and what must we do in terms of addressing the streams that really are the major boosters of on-source revenue for counties. So we have counties like Nairobi, we have counties like Murang'a, we have counties like Homa Bay, we have counties like Nyeri, we have counties like Narok that are doing very, very well, and for very good reasons. Narok, for example, has a national park that really presents a lot of royalties and therefore revenue to the county. Most counties that used to have universities are currently struggling because those universities were major revenue sources, revenue streams to counties. But the moment universities or these huge macro investment opportunities begin to struggle, then the county will automatically struggle. So again, part of the challenges is that we are squeezing from low-lying streams like liquor, wines and spirit shops, you know, people who sometimes don't even make up to 10,000 per day, but we expect that they have to pay, you know. So
Let me ask you this question. There is this contested 10 billion shillings from the constituency to the counties. What's your take on that? In 20 seconds?
Fourth schedule, devolve functions, let the money follow functions. And so if they are county functions, give them the money. There is no reason for governors to fight with MPs over roads funds for counties, for roads that are actually devolved.
Very good. Gentlemen, I just have like 5 minutes and I want us to wrap it up very quickly. There is this, let's talk about the youth effect in this country, the youth economy. I would imagine, our Prof, just in 1 minute if you can, how can the youth population in this country be used to boost our economy if well utilized?
That's a very important question, and I think that is a question that we are struggling, even as a government, to address because of what has happened over the last several months. One, we need to empower our youth with the human with the capacity building initiatives to ensure that they are able to create opportunities for themselves. Because as we stand at the moment, you know, we look up to the government to create opportunities for us. And that is why everybody is complaining, the youth is complaining that, you know, you told us to go to school. You told us to get good degrees, you know, become an engineer. But then at the end of my 4 years at the university, I am jobless. So then why do I need to go to school? And you committed that once I go through the education system, you will get me that opportunity to take me, to fend for myself. So what we need to look at this moment, because of the changing development, programs and expectations across board, we need to change the way we build our human capital base in this country. Change the way we train our youth to ensure that instead of training them to come and look for jobs only from the few sources that we have in the country, we sort of empower them to create opportunities for themselves, especially within the digital economic space. Number two is what I said previously, that, you know, for us to create those decent jobs that you're talking about, we need to grow our industrial base. That is something that we've been talking about as a country. But one of the questions that we ask ourselves, and one issue that was raised by one of the advanced countries, is that, you know, we do not have an industrial policy that will now define where we want to go as a country. And that person did take us back. Actually, that was the Japanese ambassador. I had a meeting with them. He told me that, you know, in 1890, the Japanese did put together a policy that saw the growth of the industrial sector in the country up to date. That is what we need as a country, that we work towards growing an industrial base so that we can create opportunities for these young men and women, so that we keep them busy building the nation instead of fighting the government and the older generation. But one last thing, it is important to ask ourselves why
you can hold that so that you'll give your last word on how to make Kenya great. Keep it for that. Let me start with Bon. I don't know why we call you Bon. Hesbon.
That's how I was known.
I think that was your nickname when you were young.
That was my nickname.
Okay. So Hesbon Omolo, let's start with you. Where is his camera? Camera one. How to make Kenya great in 1 minute. I know you're a gentleman and you will achieve that in 1 minute. How do we make Kenya great? Starting now.
Thank you. I think for us to make Kenya great, number one is to have institutional excellence and accountability. That means we have to ask ourselves, how far can we go with public service reform? How do we increase fiscal discipline? How do we strengthen devolution? Not just about resources, but also their systems at the grassroots level. Number two is economic revitalization and equity. That is where we must ask ourselves how far we go with sectoral reforms to strengthen the better agenda, the MSME formalization, and issues such as export-led growth. Number three is about human capital development. That is the cornerstone and the backbone of this economy. We are the best country in Africa in terms of human capital. We must continue to hone the skills of our young, and therefore we must ensure that our systems work well, our UHC works well so that we have a healthy population. And number four is about climate leadership and sustainability. We must not lose sight of that. And finally, we must be able to build social cohesion and national identity. And therefore that requires that we must build a culture environment where civic education goes to every one of us on what our responsibility. Kenya is for all of us, and therefore we must all guard it jealously. We must therefore do what is right. And that I could summarize in one word. We must be able as a country to build a nation that is resilient, but is also anchored on justice in how we do everything as a country so that we work together.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, he is taking your time. 30 seconds. How to make Kenya great. Kevin, I know you're looking at me like, hey, 30 seconds. How to make Kenya great. Camera one. Go ahead. 30 seconds.
Making Kenya great is a bold and patriotic goal, in my view, and therefore it has to be focused on a very clear vision, like revitalizing Vision 2030, ensuring accountable leadership and active citizenship, including, of course, long-term planning. Now, part of what we must do is to anchor our national development on values, so taking us back to Article 10, Chapter 6 of our Constitution, concerns around fighting corruption, concerns around meritocracy over tribalism in our public sector and employment, recruitment and hiring, issues around national ethos, where we focus on civic education. Surprisingly, we don't have a national civic education curriculum, and therefore awareness creation and citizen agency becomes a little bit troublesome. Number two, of course, rebuilding our human capital, where we focus on a very stable, predictable curriculum for our education. Universal healthcare must work and be seen to be working, and also focusing on youth employment, which is one thing that we have also talked about here. The third thing, in my view, that we must do to make Kenya great is to build and maintain our infrastructure so that access from one county to the other becomes easy, markets become accessible, and therefore our roads in the rural areas must work. We must ensure that we complete, Victor, these stalled public projects and audit capital expenditures, because again we have a lot of pilferages and loopholes in that. And then digitize government services fully, which I think is a progressive thing that we continue to do. If the hustler economy is true and real, then it has to be empowered, and the SME financing has to be bold and accountable. We must ease the space of doing business, where we simplify permits, and we also ensure that we have a predictable tax law and tax policies, and also eliminate bribes for small traders, among several other things.
Thank you. Sana, Kevin Osido. Prof, 30 seconds. How to make Kenya great. That is your camera. Which camera? Camera 5. 30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much, Ken. Just going to add to what my fellow panelists have said. We need, number one, to review and reform our governance systems to accommodate the economic issues and concerns that we're facing today, including, of course, what we've seen with the Gen Zs, so that we can ensure that Kenya moves back to a path of prosperity. And one of them, for example, is paying the pending bills that we have had an issue with in the government, and that has stalled the kind of development that we expect to see in different sectors of this country. Number two, we need to implement key policies. You know, we have all these policies that we put together, beautiful ones, which are never implemented, to ensure that we need to ensure that these policies work for the people and benefit the things that we do. Number three, we need to refocus our education, training and research to ensure that we are more futuristic, to address not only the challenges of today, but the challenges of the future, so that we can build a strong development foundation. And finally, we must all work together, we must be patriotic, and we must all do our part to ensure that we are part of the process of making Kenya as a prosperous country.
Umoja ni nguvu.
Utengano ni udhaifu.
Thank you so much. Asante sana. That is Professor Menel Mutisa. He's an economist by profession. Asante sana for coming to the show.
Thank you very much.
Kevin Osido, Executive Director, Kenya County Governors Watch. I can also say Kenya County Governors Watch, which is still okay. And FCPA Hesbon Omolo, Council Member ISPAC. Gentlemen, asante sana for coming to the show. But the most important person is you, the viewer, for your valid company. We are taking a break, but when we come back now, we are crossing to Zinga, huko, the other side of Kiswahili. Twende tuongee Kiswahili. Have a good morning. I'm Victor Lo. Bye-bye.
ni nini? Utanipa kizunguzungu, suka chini.
Nilidhani kila kitu iko sawa, lakini wapi? Hey!
Unamaanisha nini? Mimi najua unasikiaga nimekuchokesha sana. Lakini ni muda tu kidogo imebaki, kidogo sana. Mimi nitakufa. Mtanizika mnisahau.
What if what we had is broken? What if we are broken?
What if you're the only ones who can fix each other?
Sifurahishwi na hiyo uhusiano wenyu mko nayo na Jenny. Hata kidogo.
Oh, come on. Jenny is 21 years and above.
Hello, fabulous ladies. Welcome to the talk show that's all about sisterhood, empowerment, and unfiltered conversation. We will be focusing on women. We believe in women.
We are really changing.
We are creating a safe space for women to connect, thrive, and share.
Just because you're a woman on a bike, you're labeled in a certain way.
It's not just a talk show, it's a movement.
When they are standing, we need to stand out.
From heartwarming tales to hilarious adventures.
They could ask me, Catherine, why are you learning?
We are turning the spotlight on women who are breaking barriers in their individual fields.
You have to have a vision.
You are the leaders of Kenya today.
Keeping it honest and relatable.
Mental health is real.
Yes.
Where there is no communication, there is no relationship.
Join the sisterhood on KBC TV for Dada's show.
19 nations will compete in the Total Energies CAF African Nations Championship, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania 2024, which will be staged from 2nd to 30th August 2025. Amongst the 4 groups in the tournament A to D, Kenya is pooled in Group A, together with Morocco, Angola, DR Congo, and Zambia.
Algeria from the set piece, the header is on target, but it's saved.
This unique competition featuring the best locally based players from across the continent definitely has something for everyone. Just bring your A game as you let it flow live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Na mtazamaji wa KBC Channel 1, vile vile msikilizaji wa KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Mkenya. Ilivyo ada kila siku ya Jumanne tunapatana katika mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja kupitia Channel 1 na vile vile kupitia KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Mkenya. Na hii leo tutakuwa tunaangazia masuala ya majeraha na vile vile makovu na ni vipi tutaweza kupona kutokana na majeraha ya maandamano. Tunaangazia maridhiano ya kitaifa. Basi ni vipi kama taifa tutazungumza kwa lugha moja kuhakikisha kwamba yaliyotukia hawezi kurejea tena. Karibu sana, unaweza kuzungumza nasi kupitia katika mitandao yetu ya kijamii kwenye Facebook KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Mkenya, KBC Channel 1 na vile vile kupitia mitandao yetu ya X na pia unaweza kunitag kwa @DoraManya. Na msikilizaji na mtazamaji, yapo maandamano yalitikisa nchi mwaka uliopita na hata hivi majuzi maandamano ya Juni tarehe 17 na vile vile tarehe 25 na basi tunaangalia vipi tutaweza kuzuia mambo kama haya, manake kuna hasara ambayo imekadiriwa kando na maisha ambayo pia yamepotea. Na baada ya maandamano hayo, serikali imejaribu kuchukua hatua mbadala kwa kuunda tume za uchunguzi hapa nchini, kutoa ahadi za fidia kwa waathiriwa na familia zao na pia kuanzisha mazungumzo ya kitaifa ili kushughulikia chimbuko la matatizo yote haya. Lakini bado kuna swali, je, tunawezaje kupona kama taifa lililogawanyika kwa kutoaminiana? Basi hii leo katika studio zetu ninao wageni watatu ambao watatusaidia kujibu swali hili. Na kwanza kabisa karibu nami naye naibu gavana kaunti ya Machakos, Mheshimiwa Francis Mwangangi. Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante.
Upande wangu pia wa kushoto Mheshimiwa Tom Odege ambaye ni mbunge wa Nyatike. Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante sana.
Na katika sekunde za kuhesabu pia tutakuwa naye Bi Evelyn Ogendo, yeye ni mwana saikolojia ambaye pia anajiunga nasi katika panel hii katika muda usiokuwa mrefu. Upande wa pili wa redio ni mwenzangu Rashid Mwamkondo. Basi karibu sana msikilizaji na mtazamaji, tuendelee katika shughuli hii ya leo. Na labda tuanze tu, nianzie hapa karibu kwangu Mheshimiwa Mwangangi. tumezungumzia maandamano kutoka mwaka jana tarehe 25 Juni, yalikuwa maandamano ambayo yalitikisa nchi. Mwaka huu pia tumeona tarehe 17 na hasa tarehe 25 katika kile ambacho kilionekana kuadhimisha mwaka mmoja na kuomboleza wale ambao walipoteza maisha yao. Kwa sasa unasemaje, tuko wapi kama taifa kuhusiana na vile mambo yamekuwa yakiendelea? Tumefikia wapi? Kimaridhiano, kupona, kusonga mbele?
Kimaridhiano tuko mbali kidogo. Kuna bado tuko na hile jambo la mimi na wale na sisi, na hiyo sio jambo ambalo ni la kufurahisha. Nafikiria kama nchi kuna mambo tunahitajika tuiangazie na tuiangalilie. Kwanza siasa zetu, kwa sababu jambo ninalolizungumza hapa, kuna wale watu hata mimi siwajui, lakini according to them I'm their leader, na yale nazungumza wanaichukulia kwa maanani sana. So lazima kwanza kama viongozi tuangalie siasa zetu ni za aina gani. Kwa mfano unaona tulipoanza tulienda kwa uchaguzi uliopita. Kumalizana na uchaguzi ndio hiyo tumepelekwa kwa maandamano. Kisa na maana ujenzi ndio hao sasa wameingilia. Kukaa baadhi yetu ni hao wameingia kwa serikali. Anawaelezi watu tumeenda kule, unastukia tu baadhi ya wale wamekimbia kule na wamesema wamepeana professionals kwa serikali. Mbungeni tunasema kama nchi ni nchi ya kidemokrasia. Tukisema sisi ni nchi ya kidemokrasia, unapata mbungeni, both Senate and National Assembly, unapata viongozi wako pale wanakuamilia, hawataki kuama kabisa waingie serikali, bado wako pale wanakuamilia, na unapata nchi inaongozwa na watu wawili, both majority and minority. Kuna capturing of state agencies, na haya mambo ni mambo mazito sana, kwa sababu ikiwa asubuhi tunakaa chini tunakutana tunasema kama minority na majority kwa mbunge, Senate na National Assembly tutafanya hii na hii, and then tunaambia viongozi wetu, hiyo ndio inatendeka. Kenyans are frustrated, nobody to stand for them, na ndio tunaona tuko mahali tuko.
Asante sana. Anasema mheshimiwa hapa kwamba kimaridhiano tuko mbali, na nilipokuwa nazungumza nimemwona mheshimiwa Tom Odege kidogo ni kama kuna kitu alikuwa anataka kusema. Wewe ni mbunge, unawakilisha watu katika eneo bunge la Nyatike, mnatunga sheria katika bunge. Matukio haya ya maandamano mwaka mmoja baadaye, mwaka uliopita, mwaka huu katika maadhimisho waliotaja kukumbuka wale ambao walipoteza maisha, kupoteza mali, unachukua vipi kama mbunge? Tuko wapi?
Asante sana kwa kunipa hii nafasi, lakini wacha tuseme ukweli. Kenya kama nchi tuko mbali, na kwa vile tuko mbali inatakikana sisi tujue ya kwamba tumekosea wapi, ndio tuone vile tutaanza upya. Ukiangalia hata vijana wako kwa barabara, hii inamaanisha ya kwamba hata curricula ya shule inatakikana tuangalie mzuri sana, kwa sababu hata vile watoto wanakuja saa hii, ukiona defiance inaonyesha kuna ka foundation fulani tumekosea. Sasa hii ni jambo linatakana tuanze kwa shule, hapo chini kabisa watu wafundishwe wajue kuwa Mkenya ni nini. Lakini ukiangalia tabia yetu na vile mali tumefika saa hii, hakuna mtu atakuja hapa saa aseme yeye ni mzuri. Tukitoka kwa hii mlango kila mtu ameenda kwa ukabila yake. Tukitoka kwa hii mlango utapata vijana wanakuja wanajua ya kwamba ukitoka shule hakuna kazi. Ukitoka shule lazima ujisimamie wewe mwenyewe. Ukitoka kazi hakuna inchi for you. So inatakana tuangalie Kenya yote kabisa. Jinsi tunalelea watoto. Sisi kama wazee mahali tumekosea, tuko wapi? Ukiangalia hii mambo ya hata hii kelele tuko nayo nje hii ya Gen Z, maandamano na kila kitu, utapata percentage kubwa sana ndani yake ni siasa. Na hiyo siasa pia ukiangalia ndani yake kabisa kuna ukabila pia ndani. So hizo ni ugonjwa ingine tusipopata matibabu, hata tuongea hapa leo, kesho, mpaka next year, hatutapata jibu. Lakini jibu lazima tuwe na foundation ile inaanza kwa shule huku chini. Ukienda nchi kama Tanzania, utapata mtu anasoma kwao, utapata mtu anasoma college kwao, watu wanakuwa mix mpaka wanakuwa wa Tanzania. Unakuwa hata ukienda Tanzania ulize mtu kabila yako ni gani, wanasanga. Hiyo ni kitu ingine hata hawana. Lakini ukiona hii yetu hii, unakutana na mtu unafanya introduction na Maluo. That's the first introduction na Maluo. You are very proud of your tribe, not your country. Hizi ndio vitu ndogo ndogo lazima tuangalie. Tusipoangalia hii roti iko deep. Iko deep kabisa. Hata leo tuchukue Mwangangi tumweke awe president, bado atakuwa na hiyo challenge. Lazima tu inaanza kwa foundation huko chini. Tukisema wanasiasa wa hii hapa juu na ile sumu imeingia kwa watoto wetu, hakuna kitu tunafanya.
Naam. Umeanza vizuri mheshimiwa, na nimlete Bi Evelyn ambaye amefika. Nimeona akitingiza kichwa wakati ulikuwa unazungumzia labda ni misingi. Anasema mheshimiwa kwamba ni wakati wa kurejea katika misingi, labda twende katika shule tuanzie pale kabla tujafika hata kwa wanasiasa. Labda ugonjwa uko wapi haswa? Uko pale katika misingi yetu. Je, ni maadili katika watoto wetu, ni tamaduni, ni kipi ambacho tatizo liko pale, ambapo anasema sasa turudi pale tuanzie mahali fulani. Wewe ni mwana saikolojia.
Wakati mwingine mwanasiasa, lakini leo mimi si mwanasiasa.
Ndio.
Leo mimi ni mwana saikolojia. Alizungumzia mambo ya msingi, and mzungu alisema charity begins at home. Kitambo ufike shuleni, huyu mtoto ni mtoto umemzaa, umemlea. Mtoto umlea ndivyo kwavyo. Kuna watu wengi sana wamefeli hapa, kuanzia na sisi wazazi, kwa sababu muda tu tunapolea watoto wetu. Najua developmental stages of a human being, na kuomba ruhusa sababu vitu zingine sijafahamu sana kuzungumza kwa Kiswahili, so itabidi tu nichanganya kidogo, hata wale nikisema hiyo mambo kwa Kiswahili itawachanganya kidogo. So nimeomba ruhusa yako, shanikubalia,
lakini Kiingereza kwa kiasi.
Okay. Asante. Now tukiangalia vile sisi wenyewe wazazi, unaona hata watoto wetu wanapofika ile umri ya adolescence, unajua hata sisi wazazi kuna mambo nyingi sana tunazungumza kwenye chumba chetu. Tukifikiria mtoto angali ni mchanga, hata unaona watoto wa 1 year 2 year unaenda unaanza kuvaa nguo mbele yake, unaona wageni wakija anazungumza. So tumefeli kama wazazi, tuanzie hapo. Kwa sababu ile maneno mnazungumza hata tunapopeleka watoto shuleni, wazazi wengi hawana heshima kwa walimu. Unaona watoto wazazi wanasengenya mwalimu fulani na wanacheka kwa wao, huu mtoto wao mwenye anaenda the same school, hii ni post ya mtu, sababu hawaelewi information. Unajua watoto wetu wakizaliwa hawana content, hawana information. Sisi wale tuko karibu nao ndio tunawapatia content. So watoto hao wanapofika shuleni, unaona ushasengenya mwalimu wangu, mtoto pale hata msikiza mwalimu, kwa sababu labda wazazi wanajua vile uchumi uko mbaya, labda wako na shida fulani ya kulipa school fees ama mambo nyingine. Sasa wanawafikishia walimu, hasira hizo zao wametransfer kwa mtoto, kwa mwalimu. So naona we are losing it, na mtoto angali mchanga. Sasa akiendelea kukua, ndio sisi sasa tunaendelea. Watoto wetu waliambiwa, sijui hata nani alisema hivyo, arudi nyuma apotoshe watoto wetu, asiwapotoshe tena. Education is the key to success. Kuna hiyo kitu ilikuwa inakuwa kama slogan, sijui kama shule zingine bado zinatumia education is the key to success. Sasa mimi nasema education alone will never be the key to success. Kuna wale watu who have good morals. Uko na uhusiano gani na Mungu wako? Uko na uhusiano gani na wakuu wako? Uko na uhusiano gani na wazazi wako? Uko na uhusiano gani na wewe mwenyewe? Unajua watoto wetu wengi hawajajitambua, sababu kila wakati anataka kuwa kama mtu mwingine. They want to be like somebody else. So wewe ni nani? Ukiuliza mtoto wetu wewe ni nani, ataanza kukuambia mimi ni kwa hii shule nilipata hii grade, niko university nafanya hiko. That is not who you are.
Kwa hivyo wazazi wana kibarua kwa watoto.
Hata wameshafeli kwa kibarua. Tuanze hapo. Sababu hawa watoto, msamaki mkunje angali mbichi. So na wazazi wengi aswa naona watoto Gen Z vile wana process information sio vile mimi naweza process, sio vile anaweza process, vile anaweza process. Kwa sababu gani? Kuishi kwingi kuona mengi. Hawa ni watoto wamekuwa, wamepata maneno vile yako, wamepata siasa, wamejua siasa yetu ni ya miaka 5. Kwa sababu hapa kuna siasa, kuna pesa rahisi. Chukua hii, pigia huyu kelele. Na unajua anataka majibu ya saa hiyo. Ataki kujua baadaye kutakuwa nini.
Naam, Biblia umezungumza vizuri. Tutakuja baadaye hapo. Kwa sasa tufanye vipi kwenda mbele? Manake tuko hapa kutafuta suluhu kama taifa. Lazima tusonge mbele kama taifa.
Sasa tunafaa kuelewa kama nchi ya Kenya. Kama ni ule former deputy president, kila mtu akuna hasira zake. Hapa ni hasira. Mimi nimekasirika na wewe. Mimi nimekasirika na mheshimiwa. Sasa mimi I'm recruiting other people to be annoyed with me. Na wewe hujakuwa deputy president.
Shikilia pale.
Mbona asipewe ruhusa apige vita zake mwenyewe?
Shikilia pale, manake pia hatuna thibitisho kwamba labda anajitokeza wazi katika haya mambo na kuhusika moja kwa moja, na sitataka tuende pale. Labda kidogo nimlete bwana Mwangangi hapa mheshimiwa. Na ulipoanza kuzungumza ulianza kwa misingi ya siasa. Ikawa kwamba kidogo ukasema tuko mbali katika masuala ya maridhiano. Amezungumzia masuala ya maadili ya watoto na amezungumzia masuala ya misingi katika watoto wetu. Hivi tuangalie haya mambo yote kwa pamoja. Kama taifa lazima tusonge mbele nilivyosema, lakini ni vipi kutakuwa na balance katika haya mambo mawili, kwamba hawa watoto kuna wale wanasema wanajua haki yao, wanatafuta uwajibikaji ama accountability kutoka kwa viongozi wa kisiasa, lakini wapo wale wanahisi ya kwamba ni upotovu tu wa nidhamu. Vipi tu strike balance?
Kitambo nikuje kwa swali yako, niruhusu ni tofautiane na wenzangu kidogo. I think Kenyans should ignore totally the politicians from UDA and from ODM.
Kwa nini?
Hii narrative ya Gen Z ni watu ambao wameletwa na aliyekuwa naibu wa rais. Wachana na huyo amekuwa appointed the other day, ambaye nasema naibu wa rais aliyechaguliwa na wananchi.
Lakini kwa sasa tunaye naibu rais.
Tuko na naibu wa rais wa pili wa taifa wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Sasa wanataka kuleta certain theory. Akikwetu we have a saying inasema mimi nikishindwa na jambo fulani nitapeleka hiyo lawama mahali pengine. Sasa hawa wenzetu wako kwa serikali. Sasa ni wanasiasa ndio wanajua yule ametenda kitendo ndio wazungumzie, ama ni vitengo ambazo zinapaswa kufanya uchunguzi alafu wanatueleza. Hawa wanasiasa wa Kenya wa KK na ODM ndio unaona wanatembea kwa raia, wanawaeleza ni huyu si yule. Sasa na wanasiasa wa Kenya tunawajua ni wale tu kwetu asubuhi chika hii enda mahali fulani sema hivi.
Shida ni wanasiasa. Sasa vipi najaribu kuelewa.
Nataka nieleze wa Kenya, they need to ignore such a narrative because it is a narrative, political narrative to justify why they had to be used to do away with the Gachagua as the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. Sasa nikuja kwa swali yako. Najua ni vizuri tuseme ukweli. These Gen Zs si watu wajinga, ni watu wanaelewa. They are raising issues. Na katika yale maandamano, ikiwa sisi kama taifa tulijua siku hii na saa hii kutakuwa na maandamano, katiba inasema tuko na jukumu na vitengo vya usalama walikuwa walete usalama. Imekuwaje wale wanapaswa kuleta huo usalama ndio sasa tunasikia wanaongea? Ilikuwa badala ya kushika hao watu na kupeleka kotini. Na inakuwaje ni only specific businesses targeted belonging to certain individuals? How comes?
Okay.
So in this case, the Kenya Kwanza leadership is trying to justify why they brought these goons and why, because tumewaona
mheshimiwa, do you have evidence kwamba serikali ileta goons?
Evidence au kuona hapa nje ya county hall wakitembea na polisi wakibeba miti Ni lini tulitoa usalama kutoka kwa vitengo vya usalama tukapatia private thugs?
Naam, shikilia pale. Yeah. Wacha nimlete mbunge wa Nyatike. Mheshimiwa, naona unataka kuchangia katika swala hili, lakini pia tumejifunza chochote kama taifa wakati mambo kama haya yanatokea? Tuanze hata kuelekea wakati wa uchaguzi, wakati mwingine uchaguzi ukamilika, tunakuwa na ghasia za baada ya uchaguzi, tumekuwa na maandamano, mwaka jana maandamano yamefanyika tena juma lililopita. Are we learning lessons kama taifa?
Singependa niende direction ya ndugu yangu, kwa sababu tukilekesa vile anataka ingia kwa siasa na pengine kuna kitu wa Kenya watatoka nayo kwa hii kipindi ya leo. Mimi nilisema ya kwamba kama nchi lazima turudi kwa foundation, tuone ya kwamba tumekosania wapi. Mimi ni mbunge wa ODM na saa hii niko katika upinzani, hata ingawa kama kuna watu tulikuwa nayo kwa bunge na wamekuwa mawaziri. Na hapo ndio nilikuwa nataka niseme hivi. Kama tuko na nchi Kenya, kila Mkenya ako na haki ya kuwa appointed katika hiyo serikali. Hakuna sheria umevunja hata kidogo. Kila Mkenya, hata kama ni wewe ama mimi ama Mwangangi, ukipata nafasi ya kuserve watu wenu katika serikali, hakuna reason ya kuona mtu amebetray mtu mwingine. Serikali ni yetu. Sisi ni wa Kenya, serikali ni ya Kenya, kila mtu ako na haki ya kuserve. Mimi pia kama mjumbe nilichaguliwa na watu wa Nyatike na nimepatikana katika upande wa upinzani. Niko na haki kukalia hiyo na kufanya kazi mahali tusituko. Hii jambo yote hii ya Kasongo na kila kitu, ukiangalia mzuri sana ni formula ya kutoa rais ama kubadilisha leadership. Na mimi kama umekuja upande yangu uniulize kwa nini hujajiungana na watu, ama kwa nini huku support Gen Zs kama unataka kupindua serikali, hakuna ruhusa mimi kama mwanasiasa na leader katika hii nchi ni kutoa serikali ile iko na hatuna alternative. Kwa serikali nia yetu kubwa ya kwenda hiyo 77 tunataka kuachieve nini? Ama hii hata kama tulikuwa tuna remember wale walikuwa wameumia, hata hii ya 20 what ilikuwa lini? 25. Hiyo maandamano ukiangalia hiyo siku, hata kama goons ilikuja kwa ile ingine na mimi pia siku support, lakini hii hatukuwa na goons na wale walikuja, wale waliiba na goons walikuwa kina nani? Walikuwa kina nani? Wacha tuwe fair. Kama maandamano imeitwa na kuna agenda, lazima tujue hii agenda inataka kusaidia kwa Kenya namna gani. Nayo wakati wa baada ya uchaguzi tulisema uchaguzi wetu imeibwa, na hiyo ndio ilikuwa agenda yetu kubwa. Saa hii agenda kubwa ni nini? Na unafanya saa hii watu wengi wanapoteza maisha, watu wengi wanapoteza biashara, na sisi kama leaders tunatakana tusaidia watu. Kila mtu awe na haki ya kufanya biashara katika nchi. Kila mtu awe na haki ya kupata vile atakuwa na survive. Na kuna watu hii Nairobi wanaamka asubuhi wanakuja Nairobi, wanakuja City Center. Hiyo siku wao kuja Nairobi warudi na mkate, watoto wao walikula nini?
Swali zuri hilo, na tutakuja hapo kwa jinsi basi familia hizi zinafaa kuangaliwa wakati tunaanza kuangalia masuala suluhu katika sehemu ya pili haya kisha Bivlin baada ya kuchukua pumziko fupi. Manake baada ya haya yote akizungumza mheshimiwa, nimekumbuka semi za mwenda zake, nafikiri Profesa Saitoti kwamba inafika mahali taifa linakuwa kuu zaidi kuliko mtu binafsi. Na nafikiri kama taifa hapo ndo tunafaa kuwa tunaelekea, kwamba tunaweka utaifa na uzalendo mbele. Kwa sasa naomba tupate pumziko la kama dakika 1-2 upande wa pili wa studio za redio na televisheni, kisha tutakuwa tunarejea na majadiliano haya.
Okay, let's talk.
Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Morocco.
Feel the pulse of a continent where Africa's fiercest women warriors clash for glory in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations 2024. Africa's top teams, one crown. Morocco hosts once more, ready to etch new legends into history. Rising stars, one stage to shine.
And it is the Copper Queen. They have been waiting for this moment. Here's a chance for a second. South African lead by 2-0 in this final, and Hilda Bahia.
This is more than football. It's African excellence. It's women's power. Don't miss WAFCON 2024. Live from Morocco.
Looking to advertise on KBC? KBC announcement services are now available on eCitizen. Visit kbc.ecitizen.go.ke and fill out the online application form. It's simple. 1. Complete the form. 2. Upload required documents. 3. Receive a quotation based on word count. And 4. Get notified via SMS when your announcement is ready. Please note, clearly indicate the type of announcement, service station, and all relevant details. 2. All applications must be made online only. Manual submissions will not be accepted. And 3. Announcements will air after news bulletins. For assistance, reach us on email ecitizen@kbc.co.ke or use our social media handles, Facebook, your Facebook account, and X at your X account. Or you can call us on 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124. KBC announcements. Simple, fast, and digital.
Semana Sports.
Semana Sports is a bold, enlightening television show that offers Kenyans a direct line to the heart of government operations. Hosted by the government spokesman, Isaac Mwaura.
Welcome to Semana Sports Bonga da Gava.
This weekly program features candid conversations with senior government officials, cabinet secretaries, and heads of key parastatals as they break down their ministries' achievements, challenges, and strategic plans.
Cage aquaculture farming, 8.7 billion.
Yes.
So there's a lot of money.
There's a lot of, and we have not even tapped the potential.
As we get closer to start constructing the first nuclear program, we should have a robust regulatory framework.
Thank you, the spokesperson, for this chance, where we are able to converse with our government.
Semana Sports.
Hii sio story ya jaba.
Sio story ya jaba. Mimi ni Mkenya mzalendo daima. Thank you.
Tuesday at 8 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
Naam, karibu tena mtazamaji wa Channel 1 na vile vile msikilizaji wa KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Mkenya. Kumbuka unatupata moja kwa moja kupitia Channel 1 na vile vile station yetu ya KBC Radio Taifa Sauti ya Mkenya, ambapo upande wa pili niko na mwenzangu Rashid Mwamkondo, na hapa studioni kikao ni moto kiasi wakati ambapo tumekwenda break, lakini tutahakikisha kwamba angalau tunatuliza joto ili kwamba tuzungumze maridhiano ya vipi tutaweza kusonga mbele. Na wageni hapa studioni wote ni wanasiasa. Leo tunajaribu sana tusipige siasa, tunajaribu kadri tuwezavyo, tuone na kwa vipi. Tunaye Bi Evelyn Ogendo ambaye ni mwana saikolojia, yuko nasi studioni. Vile vile mheshimiwa eneo bunge la Nyatike, mheshimiwa Tom Odege na mheshimiwa Francis Mwangangi ambaye ni naibu gavana katika kaunti ya Machakos. Karibuni tena wangwana. Kabla tuende kwenye break, nilikuwa nikupishe Bi Ogendo, swala hili limekuwa na uzito kiasi cha haja, lakini nataka tuangalie suluhisho kwenda mbele kama taifa. Tufanyeje? Na sana tuanze kwanza na jukumu labda la tuseme jambo la kwanza, wanaharakati na viongozi wa kidini katika kuhakikisha kwamba tunatafuta mwafaka kwenda mbele.
Unajua Kenya yetu hiyo jote yenye iko nayo, unajua kuna ile unaweza sema setting realistic goals. Unajua kuna ile realistic goals na kuna ile inaitwa timing. Sasa hivi temperatures za wa Kenya, the here no there. Yani unaona hata vile tumejibuka hapa. Unaona? Yani kuna anga, kuna hasira fulani. Yani unataja tu kitu hivi, hata mtu sasa asikize vitu zingine zote. Anakuwekea barrier, asikize vitu zingine zote. Lakini ninataka kuhakikishia wa Kenya hivi. Leo babako ni president wa hii country. Leo babako ni governor wa hii country ama kiongozi wowote. Lazima wewe mwenyewe ujibike kwa maisha yako. Lazima uamke asubuhi, lazima ujue utakula nini, utalala vipi, utafanya vipi. So kuweka suluhisho kwa kiongozi peke yake, mkichagua kiongozi fulani ndio utakuwa na maisha nzuri, hiyo ni kunoa. Hiyo si ukweli, sababu you have to do something as a human being, hata kama ni babako ako ushukani. So kwa hivyo kuna hiyo narrative tumeingiza kwa vichwa zetu zenye sasa viongozi ndio watasaidia kuongoza, iwe viongozi wa kanisa, iwe sisi kama baba mama, uncle zao, aunti zao, sisi wenyewe tujibike kwa watoto, sababu wakitoka kwenye street, wakitoka na majeraha zao, tukienda hospitali, tukienda kwa mochari kulia, sana wa mama, ule baba niliona akilia peke yake ni baba ujua peke yake ndio niliona akilia wa baba. Hii machozi ingine yote ni wanawake wanalia, ile uchungu ya kuzaa mwana. Sasa mimi naona hii nchi yetu sasa kuna ile inaitwa voice of reason. Voice of reason has to change. The narrative is wale wako kwenye siasa ni wanaume. Sasa wanawake wajibike, waamke, si kwa sababu pia wabebe matawi. Hapana. Waamke wakatae, sababu hawa watoto wakitoka kwenye street wanaenda kwa nyumba fulani. Hata kama ni nyumba wamekombolewa, kuna mama, there is a woman picture there. Sasa ndio mimi nasema let the women of this nation be the voice of reason. Otherwise ukiongelesha, hata unaona vile tunakaa hapa na waheshimiwa hawa, unaona kuna vile wanafikiria, kuna vile mimi nafikiria. Kwa sababu mimi nikisikia mambo ya protest nashangaa ni mtoto wa nani tena atapoteza maisha.
Unaongea the women of this country wako the voice of reason. Wewe ni mwanamke, kwa mfano mimi ni mwanamke, tuzungumzia labda the political class, tuzungumzia mama pale nyumbani ambaye anauza mboga, ama tuzungumzia wanawake kiujumla.
Mama ni mama. Tuanzie first lady, tukuje Bi Aida, tukuje wote, watu waongoze kutoka juu. Women should be the voice of reason. Sababu huyu mwanamke, ule bwana, si even the president as a wife. Akarudi nyumbani, atarudi kwa bibi yake. These men and young men and girls, all of them are going back to the female. Most of them are going back either to your aunt, to your wife, to your mother. So if the women of this nation can step up, useme uone kama bwanangu, useme yeye ndio president, mimi namwambia, tukiwa mimi na yeye tu, namwambia my husband, I think this is wrong. I am telling you they will listen. So who is going to talk to this nation? It's women, the voice of reason. Okay. Yenye imechukuliwa ni kama, unaona hata hii kwa hii maandamano, the girls utaona ni very few. Hata mtu anashanga, unajaribu kuangalia hivi, that girl is tough, what's going on? Now, what ile mabadilisho itakuwa hapa ni wa mama kujibika.
Okay.
Hata mheshimiwa hapa si yako na bibi yake. Uko na bibi yako. This line you are speaking, hii line itatuletea vurugu. Trust me, you will listen.
Shikilia pale Bivlin, wacha nije kwako mheshimiwa Odege. mwaka gani? Na kutakuwa na vurugu, kutatokea maandamano. Sasa tunaanza kudai labda accountability. Ndio watu wana haki, kikatiba pia ipo, lakini katika njia ambayo iko sawa. Suluhu ni lipi kwenda mbele kama taifa, Mheshimiwa Odege?
Wacha nianze mahali ameacha. Sanity begins from me and my home. Wacha kila mtu awe na jukumu ya kuongelesha watoto yao kwao nyumbani kwanza. Watu waelewe mahali tuko na mahali tunataka kwenda. Tukifika kwa siasa, pia sisi kama wanasiasa hakuna ruhusa ya kuteka advantage of people you think are disparate. Like now, tumeona ya kwamba watu wengi hawana employment, na tunataka kuchukua hiyo kama ndio incitement point, ndio Wakenya wawe na hasira, ndio mimi nipate my political.
Hello, fabulous ladies. Welcome to the talk show that's all about sisterhood, empowerment, and unfiltered conversation. We will be focusing on women. We believe in women.
We are really changing.
We are creating a safe space for women to connect, thrive, and share.
Just because you're a woman on a bike, you're labeled in a certain way.
It's not just a talk show, it's a movement.
When they are standing, we need to stand out.
From heartwarming tales to hilarious adventures.
They could ask me, Catherine, why are you learning?
We are turning the spotlight on women who are breaking barriers in their individual fields.
You have to have a vision. You are the leaders of Kenya today.
Keeping it honest and relatable.
Mental health is real.
Yes.
Where there is no communication, there is no relationship.
Join the sisterhood on KBC TV for Dada's show.
If I was given an assignment kukufuata and to know your whereabouts.
By who?
Nachukiaga kirere ya huyu dem. She can do anything.
Niko sure si juu niko namfuatilia.
The only person who cares about my sister's safety is me.
Oh my God. Oh my
God. Because Glenn is missing and now Ruth.
Wait, what? Glenn is missing?
Mom, uko kwa Kathy.
Mom, relax.
Nini utanipa kizunguzungu, suka chini.
Nilidhani kila kitu iko sawa, lakini wapi? Hey!
Unamaanisha nini? Mimi najua unasikiaga nimekuchokesha sana. Lakini ni muda tu kidogo imebaki, kidogo sana. Mimi nitakufa. Mtanizika mnisahau.
What if what we had is broken? What if we are broken?
What if you're the only ones who can fix each other?
Sifurahishwi na hiyo uhusiano wenyu mko nao na Jenny. Hata kidogo.
Oh, come on. Jenny is 21 years and above.
tunatafuta suluhisho la kwenda mbele. Maana kama taifa lazima tusonge mbele mheshimiwa. Utakubaliana na sio Ama unafurahia vile mambo yalivyo kwa sasa labda. Lakini lazima tusonge mbele. Suluhisho ni lipi? Na tunazungumzia hapa suluhisho za kudumu. Si kwamba leo, maana narudi nyuma kidogo katika miaka ambayo imepita. Mara si moja utasikia kwa mfano tuwe na dialogue, tunakuwa na kamati mbalimbali za kushughulikia mambo fulani. Hata baadaye ni ruhusu kutaja kwa mfano mambo ya NADCO, hiyo ni kando kidogo. Lakini ukiangalia haya mambo yote mara nyingi wanasema tuzungumze. Ni kuzungumza tuzungumzi ama mazungumzo hayajazaa matunda kwamba tunahitaji suluhu zingine tofauti. Which way forward?
Mheshimiwa ameongea vizuri.
Umekubali?
Ameongea vizuri. Amesema shida ya jinsi wanaelewa vizuri. Na hiyo ni mzuri. So ningekuwa ODM na UDA sahi, advise hawa kuita national dialogue. Hii dialogue itawahusisha this JNC wa viongozi wa kikanisa, viongozi wa kibiashara katika taifa letu, kwa sababu wako na mambo yao. Nchi hii ile shida zote amesema, na hawa JNCs they are agitating for better governance because it is their poor policies. Hawa serikali ni yetu kama Kenya, ni sisi wote, mimi nikiwa ndani, lakini administration ni ya Raila na Ruto. Let's make it that one very clear.
Why do you bring Raila in this?
Sasa I thought we said tutafute njia ya kwenda mbele.
Why do you bring Raila in this?
Basi don't respond. Mheshimiwa Mwangangi, tutafute suluhu kwenda mbele tu. Tuweke siasa kando.
Kocha, hiyo sio siasa. Dola, msijaribu kuleta hiyo narrative inaleta ni siasa. I'm bringing a serious proposal on a solution. Kusema Raila na Ruto, tunaona viongozi top ODM party leaders were appointed into positions of leadership. That is
so those people are born not to serve any government.
Now, what I'm saying, mwalimu wangu linifunza mtu akizungumza unasikiza. Listen to wisdom.
Okay, endelea.
Now, sasa hii national dialogue itatupeleka mahali, kwa sababu kila mtu atakuja pale aseme shida yangu kama Gen Z ni kuna ufisadi Kenya, na ndio maana ile Higher Education Lords Board ile policy mmeleta imeka almost 3/4 of the education the students almost out of the education system. Waseme turudi pale, ama ikiwa ni kurekebisha turekebishe pale, so that millions of students can be catered for. Siku hizi unawaona wana agitate in the streets. Siku hizi for the first time under this administration, ambao hawa wanasema wanawaambia tu support, unaona hata waridi wa vyuo vikuu wanaenda ku agitate kwa streets. Huyu amewaongoza mara mingi is a unionist because of the policies zile zimeletwa na nini na serikali. Tunasema kodi iko juu ambayo inafanya biashara ziame hata nchi yetu. Ikuwe ngumu for businesses to expand, to absorb these agencies na the rest of the population. Ndio tunasema ni vizuri watu wazungumzea ya mambo, so that out of this discussion we will come up with solutions, and not solutions ambazo ni political driven. Ni vitu ziko na clear timelines now to implement them for the bettering of our country. This is not politics, it is serious business.
Umesema kitu muhimu sana. Sasa
ni vibaya sana. Ni vibaya sana tunaketi hapa tunasema it's like agencies tunachukulia kwa sababu ya over high unemployment rate in our country ambayo imeletwa na policies za hii serikali. Unasema ati ni kama tunaelewa vile wanafanya, ili hali we have a parliamentarian here atuelezi hata mbungeni anafanya nini ku address some of high taxation regime in the country. He is not telling us what they are doing as an institution, because amesema vizuri, sisi tumechaguliwa tunalipwa na kodi ya inatolewa kutoka kwa Wakenya. Kwa nini tusilete policies and laws that are going to address their challenges? You know, so this dialogue is very important.
Umeeleza vizuri dialogue. Kidogo tu hapo kwa
dialogue.
Dialogue wakati tunazungumzia labda ni kwa uwanja, ni watu wachache wetu kwa meza. Labda kidogo tu ufafanue kwa dakika moja wakati wa dialogue.
Just tell Professor Akwe anasikiza.
Sawa.
Mimi mwenyewe nilipokuwa naongea nimesema na nitarudia, the dialogue should include everybody. Okay, everybody in terms of what we have organized way of religious community in this country. Tunajua our JNCs how to include them, because for example every university has student leadership. Ukisema unataka wanarika in different categories, you will get them. Ukisema leo wafanyabiashara tunajua they are grouped in a certain way. Tuko na CAM, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, tuko na Kenya Private Sector Alliance, tuko na wengine even SMEs siku hizi wako na nini. Everybody who needs to be brought on the table. Umeniuliza watakuja, even leadership of the parliament. They represent people. You have heard over 3 times he's quoting, he represents a certain constituency. So everybody needs to be brought on the table, and who to do it. Since already even the political class, those who are agitating out there, watu wanaona ati Gachagua amekasirika. Si Gachagua amekasirika, ni wa Kenya, and it has got nothing to do with the former deputy president. Lakini hawa watu wetu wameungana juzi, they want to lie to the world and the Kenyans that it is ni Gachagua ndiye analeta hii. This is, I don't agree with this.
Tushikilie pale.
Si Gachagua ameleta high taxation regime na mambo mengi.
Hatukuwa tunazungumzia regard Gachagua nafikiria, hatukuwa hapo kwa regard.
None of us has talked about Gachagua. The only man talking about Gachagua repeatedly is my brother Mwangangi. Sisi hatujawahi ongea mambo ya Gachagua.
Asante nataka kutoka pale.
Hatukuitwa hapa kuongea mambo ya Gachagua.
Vizuri sana. Na asante kwa hilo, umejieleza vizuri. Itakuwa makosa kumaliza majadiliano manake ni dakika kama 8 kama hatujazungumzia masuala ya fidia kwa mfano. Tunapozungumza hapa maandamano yanakuja na athari zake. Wapo watu wamepoteza maisha, wazazi wanaumia, wamepoteza mali. Hizi zote ni hivi vyote ni vidonda ambavyo vipo ndani ya watu. Na ningependa kujua labda kutoka kwenu, jinsi gani mwafaka ya labda serikali kufidia wale ambao wameathirika katika njia moja au nyingine kulingana kutokana na haya maandamano.
Tasli, wakati tulikuwa bunge, kama ulifuata majadiliano katika bunge hiyo siku, tulisema lazima serikali waangalia ya kwamba wale watu wamepoteza biashara wasaidiwe. Jana uliona ya kwamba pia wale waliumia na walipelekwa hospitali, bili yao imekuwa waived. Hawatalipa pesa katika hospitali kwa sababu serikali itasimamia. Lakini tunataka tuende zaidi, kwa sababu hii biashara hata ukiwasaidia saa hii warudi na tarehe 7 ivunjwe tena, itakuwa kasi ya bure. Ya lazima tuone ya kwamba kama kuna mtu anafanya biashara yake, hiyo business inakuwa protected na watu wawe safe katika biashara wanafanya. Lakini mambo ya siasa haitaisha. Lakini kitu nataka nimwambie wa Kenya, siasa, awacha siasa ile kesho katika ballot. Lakini siasa ya incitement na mambo ya barabara na kelele mingi tuachane nayo. Kama mtu akona sera yake fulani, direct ya sera kwa yule mtu amemkosea, kuna haja kuje aniambie mimi kama Tom, kwa sababu nimekosana na Dora, sasa kuja mnisaidie tumpige. Hapana. Hata mimi kila siku tunakosana na watu, lakini vile tunatatua utaijua. Yeye pia hiyo yake, ama wao wafanye vile wanataka. Lakini hii mambo ya kuja hapa na kujaribu kutatua mambo yako ya kuingiza watu wengi ndani, hakuna haja. Lakini yangu ya mwisho kabisa, tuko na serikali. Na kama tuko na serikali, asitaki niseme serikali ni Ruto. Hapana, serikali ni mimi, wewe na mtoto yako. Na hiyo serikali ndio inaitwa Kenya. Leo Ruto ni president, jana Uhuru alikuwa president, kesho Tom atakuwa president. Na atakuwa tu president wakati umepata inchi iko. tukichoma hii nchi, hata tukipiga siasa mpaka milele na milele, hatutakuwa na nchi ya kuongoza. Wacha tuone ya kwamba tuko na nchi, na hiyo nchi lazima iwe yetu, na lazima tuchunge. Na hiyo nchi, wakati tunaangalia nchi ya Kenya, mambo ya presidency tuachane naye.
Asante. Kabla sijawahusisha wageni wengine, nisome baadhi ya jumbe hapa kupitia mtandao wetu wa Facebook. Yupo mmoja anaitwa Mama Chris, manake tunauliza hapa suluhu ni lipi kuleta maridhiano kama nchi na tuweze kusonga mbele. Mama Chris anasema kuketi na wakina Gen Z ili wajue wanataka nini. Sisi Siaya County tunafuatilia. Griffins M. Odari anasema kuondoa maandamano kwenye katiba. Anasema mwingine hapa David Rotich kwamba since protest and picketing is guaranteed katika katiba, anasema ime mess up, they bring in the police paid by taxpayers money, guarantee the security of a private arrangement. Ujumbe wake ni mrefu, lakini anasema kwamba kunafaa kufanyika njia katika ama maandamano katika njia sawa, na vile vile polisi wakaweze kulinda mali. Nitasoma nyingine moja. Dennis Nyongesa anasema ni jukumu letu wananchi kuwatuma wanasiasa wasiofanya kazi nyumbani. Anasema kwanza serikali yafaa 95% ya wabunge ikiwemo wote wakaweze kwenda nyumbani, 95% ya hawa wabunge. Alafu nitamaliza na moja hapa, anasema Enos Kirama, sheria madhubuti iwekwe ya maandamano, bila hivyo tutashuhudia maandamano kila wakati. Na mmoja tu, lazima serikali okay. Lakini wengi wanasema pande zote mbili ziweze kuhusishwa ili kwamba Gen Z wakaweze kuzungumziwa katika masuala haya. Tunaelekea kutamatisha na tulikuwa tunatafuta suluhu, na umeona wengi wakizungumzia masuala ya kuweza kutafuta suluhu kupitia kuzungumza na Gen Z. Hali ya fidia kwa ufupi tu sana, sofa tumefanya vya kutosha, ama serikali imefanya vya kutosha. Najua tuzirejesha maisha, lakini
hakuna serikali yoyote hata wanze tangu time of independence, hakuna ile serikali utapata kila Mkenya akisema imefanya. Kuna wenye watasema imefanya, kuna wenye watasema haijafanya, sababu hakuna one perfect situation or one perfect person. Na mimi nasema kwa sababu ya kuleta suluhu kwa maneno yanayoendelea Kenya, Wakenya nataka waangalie si Ruto na Raila peke yake wataleta hiyo. Kila mtu ajibike. You kama mama mboga, you like the president, you like the governor, you like the deputy governor, you like the member of parliament, unafaa kujibika in the effort of providing solutions to this country. Kenya is not for Ruto and Raila. It's not. They only have a coalition. See how this country has mama mboga, has Gen Zs, has what? And what's the problem with Gen Zs? Creating jobs. What can you do as a government? Can you reduce the retirement age? Ndio watoto waingie mainstream. Number 2, can you set policies, especially in the private sector? In the private sector, like if you have your company, how many Gen Zs have you employed? They can be given a percentage. Look at these tenders. Umesikia vile mheshimiwa anasema unapatia wa Gen Zs kazi, wameenda wameomba, umesema hii ni ya youth, umewapatia tender inachukua 5 years, hata imsaidii. Unaona, ina cost more trouble. So those are the policies that should be put in place and implemented. Unajua kuna vile these policies are put in place lakini they are not implemented. So mimi nasema Kenya yetu ndio tupate suluhu. Kila mtu lazima ajibike from where she or he is. Hii si kitu ati mkitaja ukiamka asubuhi umelala njaa haukwenda kufanya kazi, Ruto Raila. That is not going to work. Everybody ajibike and be responsible within your own skin. Ujue hii country ni yetu sisi wote. Hata wewe kama mtangazaji, lazima uje utangaze vizuri, ulipe mshahara yako. Uko na familia yako, kuna mambo zako unafanya. Hawa wana cameras wako hapa. Wako na familia, wako na jukumu lao, wako na mambo zao wanafanya. Lazima asimame pale, afanye vile anafanya na apewe ruhusa ya kusimama pale na amani. Lakini sasa protests zimekuja, wako kule nje wanachukua ninyo. Imepasuliwa, imefanya nini, yeye mwenyewe ameumizwa. Imetusaidia na nini?
Naam. Asante Bwana Mwangangi, tukimalizia njia mbadala labda ambayo tunaweza kusema vijana wetu wanaweza kuwasilisha lalama zao kando labda na maandamano, unafikiria ni zipi? Najua maandamano yako katika katiba ibara 37, lakini katika njia ambayo inafaa pasipokuwa na silaha na kadhalika. Kuna njia mbadala labda wanaweza kueleza tetesi zao?
Kwanza, before nikuje kwa hilo, niruhusu niseme ya kwamba tunasema tunaelewa nini inaendelea, lakini inakaa kama hatuelewi. Kwa sababu better improved governance is what is at the center of these demonstrations. Na ukisikia hawa ni watu wanaelewa the kind of country they want. Ndola wanaotutazama na wanaotusikiza labda ni wasomi, wamesoma sana, wako na experience more than any of us here. There is no country on earth. There is no country on earth that has been developed by some of the policies I'm seeing. And that's why I'm saying, kwa sababu kuna watu wengi, unasikia tukizungumza tunasema kuna makasiriko. Hawa wamekasirika. So mazungumzo kwa sababu sisi ni wa Kenya na hatuna nchi nyingine, na furahia vile tunasema sisi wote hapa. Ni vizuri watu wazungumze, and out of that discussion, out of that discourse, kutatokea mambo ambayo yataform a policy or a law that will address some of these challenges going forward. Jambo lingine, ikiwa tunataka kuendelea kama nchi, constitutionalism is very important. Rule of law. The way we are seeing, watu wanaorganize maandamano hapa, the people in power wanaangalia, wanaona hii maandamano itatokea, itakuwa successful, it will not be violent, tunanilish police na these militias. And then we create a narrative, unachukua wanasiasa sasa, wanaenda rally sasa ndio wanaeleza wananchi what happened. No, sincerely. So, and my last point is, let's think, anything that comes out of my mouth, nichunge na nini nasema. And I'm very sincere on this. Kuna mambo tunasema, lakini pia tusiseme tunapenda Kenya. Hakuna nchi imeendelea ulimwenguni kote. Nchi zingine that developed today, they have an history of a revolution of certain sort. Na revolutions, hata ukiangalia nchi yetu vile tumesonga, look what we did to send away the colonialists. Look what we did to ensure success. Look what we did to have the constitution with the freedoms that we are enjoying today. So there has to be a way, and this way we don't need to shed blood. Okay. If these maandamanos are not interfered na state agencies and infiltrated, and those who want to defend the system because maybe I'm benefiting from the same system and I must protect it in one way or the other, hii mambo nchi yetu tutaendelea na kila mtu ata-express his or her own freedoms.
Asante, umejieleza vizuri. Muda umenipa kisogo wangwana. Tufanye hivi siku nyingine itakuwa sawa. Lakini tumekubaliana ipo haja mazungumzo. Sekunde 30 alafu tutoke. Tafadhali. Sekunde 30 wanake taarifa.
Hii ni yangu ya mwisho kabisa. Kenya ni nchi yetu na ni nchi tunapenda. Ningependa niombe wanasiasa wenzangu, wale wanataka kiti, wale wanataka kureplace Ruto, tuchape siasa kwa njia ile inafaa.
Hata wale wanataka kureplace
watufanye siasa kwa njia ile inafaa. Unajua wewe you serve one time, I've served two, so you have to respect me. I'm your senior.
Asante ni mheshimiwa. Hata mimi kimalizia kume tu tafadhali. Mwelekezi aniambie ndo natoka. Ile
naweza ambia Wakenya ya kwamba peace, amani, hizi protest tunashinda tukisema it's in the constitution, but haijafanya kazi. It has been infiltrated by goons. Mimi naomba tu mambo ya protest ziache for now, sababu kama ingekuwa peaceful protest that's okay, lakini wanaenda kwa street, wamama wengi wanaendelea kulia, maisha inapotea. Mimi naomba tu wa Kenya tuwe watulivu for now. We are not in the right state of mind to handle a crisis.
Asante. Tuachie hapo, tutaendelea. Mtazamaji na msikilizaji, hii hatutamaliza. Mheshimiwa Mwangangi, Mheshimiwa Evelyn, asanteni sana. Watazamaji tunasema asante sana. Kumbuka maoni yote yaliyotolewa hapa si ya shirika, lakini ni maoni ya hawa wageni kibinafsi. Bi Evelyn Ogendo asante, ambaye ni mwanasaikolojia. Mheshimiwa Tom asante, na vile vile Mheshimiwa Francis Mwangangi, naibu gavana kaunti ya Machakos. So elekezi wangu, na asante sana Dennis Chisaka wa Moi Masila. Wacha turejee upande wa pili wa studio.
comes round hii mnakubali kupatia mtu pesa, stranger from nowhere?
You're not a stranger, wewe ni caretaker wetu.
Very good. Na caretaker yuko na right ya kuitisha pesa ya nyumba? Atingwe. How can you trust a human being?
By the way, kwani hao walikuwa namna gani?
People are different.
Wewe ni tofauti sana.
What?
Wewe unatrustiwa, wewe ana take advantage ya hiyo trust.
Nikisema hii mahakama unaniwekelea mimi ndio nilikula sa nyumba, kwani wao wanakuja kunilipa kwangu, mimi ndio landlord wa hii nyumba.
Hakuna pesa yangu umekula. Umekula pesa ya wapangaji.
Women's Africa Cup of Nations, Morocco.
Feel the pulse of a continent, where Africa's fiercest women warriors clash for glory in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations 2024. Africa's top teams, one crown. Morocco hosts once more, ready to etch new legends into history. Rising stars, one stage to shine.
And it is the Copa Queen. They have been waiting for this moment. Here's a chance for a second. South African lead by 2-0 in this final, and he'll never higher.
This is more than football. It's African excellence. It's women's power. Don't miss WAFCON 2024. Live from Morocco.
Okay, let's talk matters and specifically men's mental health wellness as we get to commemorate this specific topic on this month of June. June Awareness Month. And how about we get into it? Today we will be talking about breaking the silence on the stigma on men's mental health awareness. So let's get into it. I have three gentlemen with me in studio right now, and I will begin with, we have Robert Omondi. Robert Omondi is from the Youth for Mental Health Consortium, and then we also have, all right, next to him on his right, we have Benjamin Mutoko, and Benjamin is a mental health programs officer, LVCT Health, and then right next to me over here we have Baraza Churchill. Baraza Churchill is a nurse, psychiatrist, and lecturer. But before we get into the conversation, how about we start it differently today? Robert, take it away.
Wanasema mwanaume ni pile ya society. Mwanaume ni backbone ya familia. Wanasema mwanaume ni daily breadwinner. Lakini hapa pile ya society imecrack. Mwanaume weka plaster. We ni strong, backbone ya familia imevunjika. Mwanaume weka bandage. We ni strong, daily breadwinner. Leo ana lose. Mwanaume usijaribu kulose. We ni strong, machozi ziko balancing, ziko almost kutiririka. Mwanaume usijaribu kulia. We ni strong, so ana mama kimoyo moyo. Juu akiongea watasema ni umama. Kuna stigma kwenda counseling, so anaita mabeshte yake wapange another plot. Pesa imemuishia mwezi na budget haja fully sort. Ongezea failed marriages na broken relationships. Bonus tie another knot. Lakini ni ngozi za strength alivikwa akiwa mdogo. Baba usijaribu kulia, we ni strong. Ni taji ya strength alivikwa akiwa mdogo. Good boy, ujalia, we ni strong. Ni size za strength alifunzwa akiwa mdogo. Good boy, we ni strong. Ni weight ya strength alipimwa akigrow. Wanaume mko wapi? Nyinyi wa strong.
Amazing. This is how we do it, gentlemen. Yeah, that is how you clap for a piece, you know, spoken word piece. A very deep one, actually. That's a really deep piece, talking about the struggles that men get to endure and how society expects them to just become strong. I mean, when I'm strong, usilie, you know, and this is the reality of how things are on the ground. And I want to ask you this question, gentlemen. Why do many men, according to statistics, struggle to seek help on matters mental wellness? I'll begin with you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mr. Barasa. Now, I think men are struggling so much because of this stigma in the society today. I believe and I feel that men feel that society has brought us up. Society has brought us up in a matter or in a picture that views as a man should never speak up. A man should always handle things by himself. I think it's something that is really weighing men down of not speaking out, because if you speak out, people see you as an inferior person. People look down upon you. So I feel men are going through a lot and they can't speak out because of how the society has brought us up.
All right. Robert, what's your take on the same? Why is it that you do not speak out as men?
Yeah, just to add to what you said, it also starts when you're growing. Let's say, as I've said, when you're a small boy, when how boys are raised, a boy ameanguka, and they're like, when kijana. So by the time like you're all grown, there's this like words thrown at you, or like just the language and communication that is told to you. It's expected for you to like just bundle things up and to be less expressive, especially in things that may show weakness. So you are like just positioned to show like there's no weakness in you, and if there is, like unapambana kimwanaume, yeah, as they say.
Yeah, that's actually the term that you usually use. Pambana kimwanaume.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, and I would start by the fact that we are a cumulative total of everything that has happened to us. So the way we were brought up, the culture that you grew up in, and so that means that when I was born, and I was born with sisters, was there a different way that I was treated? Were there expectations that were set on me, not by my family, but purely by the culture? Was there a different way that I was supposed to behave because I am a man? And so all that, all the way to school, you know, there are chores that were supposed to be for men, there are chores that were supposed to be for ladies in primary school, all the way, and now you go all the way to high school, and then you go all the way to you know, university, and there's all these things that have cumulatively made you the person that you have become. And I would say there has been just that kind of conspiracy against the man. And I don't think that the intention has been actually to get man not, you know, to go through mental challenges, you know. The intention was what we know and what we have been, you know, conditioned to believe true. And so at this level, you're looking at the culture, you're looking at the, you know, religion, you're looking at what I call primary scenario, what people have gone through, their background, experiences, what they know. It has gotten to that place, and all of it conspires to say men cannot be emotional.
So it's all in the upbringing.
There is a lot around it.
Yeah.
And so the person that I have become believes that if I show emotion, if I try to show people, you know, as anyone, that I can cry, you know, or I can actually get to that place of, you know, being emotional, whether I have lost someone close to me, or, you know, I've lost a relationship, or I'm facing situations in my own family, you know, it gets me to that place where people, you know, feel like you're supposed to be the man. And so keep your emotions in. And so yeah, we keep our emotions in, and you can see what is happening.
It's doing more damage than good. Now, we say that right now we have a woke generation, you know, we're living in different times. So as we speak right now, has it gotten better or worse for men to be able to speak up on matters mental health? Is it getting any better, according to you?
Yeah, according to me, I'd say that it's getting somewhere. People are coming out. Young generation are coming out. People are talking. People are expressing their feelings. I would say that men to men always talk in places of entertainment. Even they express themselves to their partners, their wives, and even at work. I'd say that we're making progress, and men are coming out of their cocoon, and society is changing. You can't compare the society that we are right now and that of our fathers. Yeah, I think it is progressively, it's gradual, baby steps, but we're heading somewhere.
Yeah.
I do concur.
Yeah.
Even if you check in social medias today, men are some of the people who are coming out and expressing their feelings, spearheading some of their agendas and things to do with our mental health. We have initiatives. We have mental health activists for men, for young adults. So I'd say that we're progressing. Yeah.
As a mental health officer, Mutoko, would you say we're having more men now open to even seeking professional help? Matters going to see a therapist and so on and so forth. Are we experiencing that?
I would also say that we still have a long way to go. Yes, depending on the model they're using. Like, I have been around men, and I have also seen and heard men say that they'd rather talk to someone that they can't see. So the fact that you're also presenting different models where they're able to express themselves and express their emotions. Somewhere I was, and there was that talk around, would you rather go see a therapist, or would you rather talk to someone online? And a lot of them, actually probably 95%, say they would rather talk to someone they can't see, who they will never meet again. And so I would say that yes, there is gradual change, but then again, looking at the way and the toll mental health is taking on men, we still have a long way to go, and it calls for urgency. So yes, we are seeing more men accepting. Some of them accept because it may be an issue at work, and so they have to go see a therapist and bring back a letter so that they're able to show that something happened. Others will want to do it because their spouses want them to, and so they are just doing it because they are being compelled to do it. But getting these men volunteering to move towards seeking help, and this is actually around most health issues. Men have really bad behaviors when it comes to seeking help around health. And so when it comes to mental health, I mean, it just gets a bit more deeper. And the truth is, a lot of us don't even know that we have that struggle around that stigma. Yes.
Yeah. Robert, as someone who works with and around young people or younger people, what would you say the situation is, matters stigma specifically on men's mental health awareness? When just speaking amongst yourself, is this something that is loud? Is the stigma really there?
As you said, now for the younger people, they are more aware, they are more woke. So I feel like younger people as friends, or where they, in their social spaces, let's say they are like, for young boys when they are meeting or to go out to socialize, they are now like talking about it more. And now the younger generation for mental health is not that like far off concept compared to now our older peers. Therefore, it's easier to have those conversations. It's easier for a guy friend to tell them like, hey bro, napitia hivi na hivi ama. But also sometimes pia, I think the pressure of social media sometimes makes it a bit worse, because now as we are more on social media, and now everybody wants to show how they are okay, how they are having a successful life, how they are thriving, which at times, and maybe you see your peers are making steps ahead and you are not, so you feel like, do I really want to tell them what I'm going through, or do I really want to show? So you also just join the bandwagon and just also just exist like happily or just unajinyamazia. But for the few who are not in that wave, they have like maybe identify a person in their friends group where I think they share, even if not deeply. Another,
Actually, just speaking about that, there's a question I asked several guy friends that I have, and I was asking them, would you be open to speak about something you're going through? Would you be open to share, maybe the challenges that are, messing with your mind in one way or the other? And every one of them, their first answer was, with whom?
Yes. Exactly.
With whom? So is it so hard for guys to find someone they can speak to, aside from what you were talking about? Now there's AI, you can actually just chat with it and tell AI whatever is going through your life. But is it so hard for guys to just find someone to talk to? Because as a woman, I speak to my friends all the time. We will cry and then that's it. So is it so hard for men to do the same, or to just identify someone they can talk to?
I'd say, at times it is. And let's say if sometimes one of your peers opens up, there's that reaction like, hey, are you okay? Like, hey, una open up. It actually scares you. And it brings also another thing. We're also not we do not know how to respond. Let's say when Benjamin starts telling me we don't know how to respond because hatujazoea like hiyo open up or mtu kukwambia, so inakushtua kwanza, inakuconcern zaidi, uko like bro uko sawa, unaona unasema vitu zingine because again it is not in us. So even outside seeking for help, even just the other way of when a friend is also reaching out, it's also a new concept. You look at it and if you find yourself in an awkward space and you don't know what to say, you go like, sometimes it's strong.
Could that be the reason why actually you're not open to speak about some situations, because of how it's going to be received? You've told your fellow guy who's a friend to you, and how they take it, you feel like, okay, it's an awkward situation over here, because now it's like I've put him in a space where he does not know what to tell me, so you'd rather just keep quiet about it. Could that be the reason?
Yeah, I'd say so. Because sometimes you open up to a friend and later on your friend uses your words against you. You understand? So men fear that. Men fear to be despised, to be looked down upon. Men would want to be the center of attention, to be the, a person who everyone is looking up to. I want to be like Mr. Robert. I want to be like Mr. Omondi. So no one will want to jeopardize that. So they fear talking out. Now, I'm telling my friend about maybe an issue. I'm having a problem with my girlfriend, for example. And then when you're out there, he makes a joke about it.
Okay.
You're drinking this much and you're having troubles in paradise. And you're like, I shouldn't have said that. So next time you're having a problem, Mr. Robert, you won't go to him. Even if he's the only friend that you're having, you won't go to him to talk to him about your situation. You'd rather die with them. Now, men tend to share things when it's too late.
True.
Let's say, for example, burials. You'll come to notice you're a friend to a person, but you'll come to know that he has lost a peer later on, a day to burial. You see? You'll know that a person is having problems at home when he has already chased the wife. You're sitting somewhere and your friend is telling you,
probably you see it on TV.
Yes. I'm no longer with so-and-so. Hey, when did it happen? A few months ago. It's nothing. So men tend to report things when it's too late. And in disease progress, it's easier to treat a disease on its earlier stages than on its late stages. Let's say, for example, cancer. Cancer stage 4, it's an end, how will I say it?
Stage.
An end stage. It's difficult to treat it unless it's a surgery. But during its first stage, chemotherapy will treat it. Let's now talk about mental health. Now, when a person shares a problem in earlier stages, counseling will help, therapy will help. But in later stages, even you yourself, you'll be out of words. And as a man, you'll just say, yeah, it's okay, bro, just be strong. You're not the first. Go out, let's drink it out, and tomorrow will take care of itself. So I feel that men tend to fear the outcome of sharing things out. Men tend to put things for themselves, and it's eating us up really bad.
And the problem is that we think that it is those major things that we are supposed to share. You just said that for you, you'll just get your girlfriend and it's going
or cry.
Or cry about, and tomorrow you meet and you forgot. For a man, you go through something and you feel it's small. It's not a big deal. And so everyone else around you is supposed, is going to give you the statements of, hii ni kitu ndogo, And so you will not even want to share it because you feel like it's small. And then tomorrow you go through another one. And then tomorrow you go through another one. So at the end of the day, you realize that you've taken in so much pressure and you've never gotten an opportunity to take it out. So those many accumulated pains eventually start portraying as something different. And that's what my brother is talking about. You get to that place where you're realizing that this thing has actually affected, very many facets of my life. My, fatherhood, my being a husband, being, a brother, being, a son to someone. All those aspects, and even, wherever I work, all that has been affected. And I cannot say it's particularly this one big thing. So the big things are important for us to deal with. But it's also important for us to realize that we are accumulating a lot through our everyday pains. So we are accumulating and it's just like when you keep taking a lot of pressure into a balloon. At the end of the day, it will get to a place and it is only going to handle so much. And now you will see some of the things that you guys are showing us on the news. Something happened. The truth is, that person was not themselves when that thing was happening, when they were, pushing into that havoc and all that. You have been taking in so much and control until you actually realize that you don't have it in control. And so it gets to that level where we are not supposed to demean any of those small things that we go through. The truth is we need to face it. That's why he's talking about coping mechanisms. Some of the coping mechanisms are, you want just to drink it out, and you think you're going to forget about it, but it's momentary. But then you wake up tomorrow and it wakes up with you.
Still there.
Exactly.
I mean, just as, he's mentioned, like, these things eat you up literally. If we look at the suicide statistics, more men are committing suicide. The numbers are actually crazy, right? So how would you want society to show up for a man? How is society supposed to show up for you in a way that is healthy, in a way that makes you feel okay? As a man, I'd be open to actually speak about this or that, instead of just bottling it up to a point where now I'm snapping or I just decide to end my life. Either of you can take that.
So first, I believe it begins with me as an individual. Like Robert said, when someone comes to me and they want to have a chat and it's a man, I do not want to behave differently. I will be willing to listen. A lot of times we meet, and I'm sure even as you came to studio, you met a lot of people along the road. And hi, how are you, and all that. If someone stopped you and said, you asked, how are you, and they said, I'm not good, what would you do? It feels weird.
Because you're used to the usual.
You're used to the usual, poor, so you are going to be stranded. Okay, so what do I tell you, We will get to that level where we will ask people how are they, and we will be willing to stay and listen, and listen to give them support. And a lot of times it is actually we need a listening state. We need a listening country. We want to get to a place where we know we can be listened to, we can be heard, and at the end of the day, we will actually be realizing that, you know, the change begins with us as individuals.
Yeah.
It goes all the way to workplaces. The other day, I think last year, but one, there was launched a workplace mental health policy guidelines by the Ministry of Health. And I would say there is a lot that is happening right now from the Ministry of Health, Division of Mental Health. There is a lot of work that is happening because, you know, there is that push that let every workplace have champions for mental wellness.
Yeah.
So that at least this conversation keeps going. You see, a lot of times when you keep talking about something, it becomes a normative. And so, you know, it becomes easier for a man to call the boss and say, you know, I'm not okay today. You know, I keep asking people, what would your boss say? If you called in today and say that, boss, I feel like I'm stressed. What would your boss say? So if you're able to answer that question, probably one of them told me, the boss is going to ask, Nani ana stress?
Which is actually true. Not even the boss. I feel like that would be the answer from many people. Like, kila mtu akona stress.
Exactly.
You know, just...
Yeah. So let's have that kind of, you know, liberty to talk about it in the workplace, because we spend much of our times around there. Let's have it in our curriculums as we are growing young people. Let's have it in religious circles where, you know, I know some churches have programs like Man Enough, where people actually realize for you to be a man does not mean that you keep stuff to yourself. It does not mean that you don't need to be emotional and all that. Let these conversations go all the way to the villages and let, you know, the discussions go on, you know, to that level where people realize that even some of these things like suicide and all the ideation around it is actually a sickness. It is not a decision, you know. It's a sickness. Someone gets to that level not because they desire. You don't wake up and say, next week on Tuesday I want to die by suicide. You know, it doesn't happen. You just get yourself to that level where you are realizing things are bad and I need support. So we need to normalize the talk about mental wellness as a sickness just like every other sickness. I mean, I don't blame you for being, you know, being sick. Like you have malaria and I'm asking you, I mean, hiyo ni kitu ya kuambia watu. You know? No one gets stigma for that. So ideally, I would say let's have that discussion. And you know, for people who are at policy level, let those policies be part of our work.
And you know, just to back that, I think it's also good to put it out there that even when someone, you know, suicide happens, you don't say they committed suicide, because it's not really a crime. You don't know what was happening to them. You say they died by suicide. Not commit, just to put it out there. Now,
just to add on, I'm sorry. Just to add on what Mr. Robert has said. Where I'm working at GFC College Munene, we embrace a policy. It is called open door policy. Like all the offices are open to suggestions. Now you can go to any office, the office that you think your problems will be solved. You don't have to follow the hierarchy. If you see that you're having a problem with maybe the school bus, go to any office and you'll be helped. I think men should also embrace that policy. Like it is called, sometimes it's called snowballing in research, whereby you throw a question for someone to talk to you. So I'll throw a question to those who are viewing and us here. How many times have you called a person just to check on that person? Hey, Mr. Robert, how are you doing? Are you okay? Most of the time when I make my calls, I always ask you, how is your mental health? And people will break down for you, even the men. True. But you know, when you've not thrown a question to someone, that person will not open up to you. That unless someone asked you something. That's why a man will talk. So I think we should also embrace that thing. Call your friends, call your partners. Hata kama mmekuwa na asubuhi, call them and ask them, how is work? How are you doing? How is your mental health? And you'll hear big stories. And I think problem once solved Problems shared is
also
yeah.
All right, I love that. And you know, still to you, Churchill, you know, as a nurse and psychiatrist, is there any science that backs that men are not beings who just open up, or this is all society thing, this is all upbringing? Because sometimes they just say, this is just how we are, you know, sisi si watu wa kuongea. But is there any science behind that?
I don't think if there is any science behind that.
Yeah.
I think it's just personalities and you know, things that people pick up. You came to Western and you found people eating ugali. And
That's your favorite meal.
Now you have to start doing that.
Yeah.
I think it is something that just people pick up, which is not a good behavior. I'd say that. And you know, we were born and we found out that men don't speak up. Men don't share a lot. Now you're a man now. Why should you share? So I think it's a fallacy that people should get it out of their mind. It's not science.
There's no science.
There's nothing behind it. It's just a personality. And we say that something learned can also be unlearned. So it's high time that I challenge young men there to come out and speak and talk to each other and try to advise each other. Yeah, let's not just keep things to ourselves.
Yeah, there's a social experiment I saw someone do on the internet whereby there's this lady who was at a busy street and they look distressed. And just as she's there, I mean, we'll just have random people coming to find out what's happening. Why are you? What's happening with you? And then they did the same with a man. A man was there looking all distressed. Trust me, no one stopped to ask, what's up with you? So who really looks after men, honestly? Because even fellow men didn't try and ask what's happening.
Exactly.
Who looks after the man?
God.
I think it's just God.
No, okay, honestly, that was really... It was something, because no single person stood to ask. That man was just there. No one asked anything.
True.
Would you say that men are also failing men? I'm sorry to say this, but I just have to ask that.
I wanted to say that, and even when you look at schools, maybe when you compare girls' schools and boys' schools, like a lot of, maybe in girls' schools, they do have sessions where the teachers would talk to them, where the teachers, for myself, I think the most talking was academic, but you'd rarely find, like, you know, the intentionality of just people coming either in primary or high school. Because all this also, as you said, happens because of how we've grown. There's not that, like, a lot of peer or mentorship. And even when men finish their school, not many of them go back, or many of them, like, notice the smaller version of themselves. Like, we also just live in isolation, like on the different generations that we are in. So, like, in terms of passing on mentorship or just looking looking after each other, it's a gap, and we really need to do a lot of that. And also that just calling your friends and just checking up on them, it's maybe among the lists of things. You might call your friends maybe to go, I don't know, watch football, or go, if it's for older men, to, like, eat meat somewhere. And I think in those spaces, which also, just to add something small, yes, maybe crying may not work for men, like saying, oh, you cry, but the idea is to just find spaces that men are comfortable sharing. Is it kwa kinyozi, where it's just a space for, is it maybe, again, menda watch ball or mnakula nyama mahali? So just also finding a space or a version of expression, if whatever we're trying to push may feel maybe quote-unquote feminine, but what works instead. But at the end of the day, bora, there's that expression.
And I don't know how much time we have, but just to ask maybe, what needs to change generally? Just if we can just try, generally look at it, what needs to change in how we talk about men's mental health to favor the man?
I think I'd say that mental health initiative should start at a younger age.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that children always have stress? Young children.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel mental health awareness and activation of the speaking out therapy should start at a younger age.
Yeah.
If you grow up knowing that you need to speak up, if you're having a problem, you need to talk to someone. I think let's say men will embrace it. You'll grow up knowing that if you're having a problem, you need to speak to someone.
Yeah.
I think it will help rather than growing up with the mentality that men should not speak out, men should not express themselves. If you're having a problem, you should not go to the therapy. I think it will change men's perspective towards our mental sanity.
Yeah. So yes, there is that part of bringing up a generation, and that's around intentional parenting.
Yeah.
So that as I parent my children, I'll be very intentional that none of them is less a human being, or none of them is a superhuman being. And so that needs to, we need to get to look at the human being as a person, beyond the gender. We need to look at that person as, beyond these bodies that you are seeing. We need to see them as human beings. And if we look at them like that, I think a lot of things will change. Yes, so we are bringing up a generation. We also need to impact the place where we are at. And I think some of them are, I've talked about policies and, workplaces and churches and mosques and, this needs to be a normal kind of discussion. And I would say, let's deal with it. There is a problem. There is the problem that we can actually get to a place where we start focusing on men so much that we lose the women and all that. But I would say, let us talk about mental wellness as something that, mental challenges as something that affects the human being. Not just the lady, but then, of course, have deliberate attention towards men. Right now, like this month is men's mental health.
Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we even doing in our workplaces? Just to make sure there is something. I know like LVCT has a whole week where we're going to be doing activities that are actually encouraging men to talk about mental wellness and how they are doing. And so what is your workplace doing so that this becomes something? I know this Sunday, I'm also going to a church and we're talking about mental wellness. So ideally, what is happening where you are? Because if it's not happening, then you are the person who carries that responsibility to start that discussion. And just remind the man he is not a superhuman. It's all right to carry that slogan of men are also human beings. And so we get to that level where I will be willing to ask a fellow man, how are you doing? And I will be willing to listen. I'll be willing to listen and do something
and
about
give you a genuine answer.
Exactly. I'll also give you a genuine answer.
Okay.
Yes.
We need to wind up. I guess you're the one who hasn't given a parting shot. Just very quickly, in like 30 seconds.
I just meant would be like, men, let's talk to each other inwardly, tuongeleshane, and look out for each other, and even just for ourselves to inwardly to prioritize, tuongeleshane, and we take care of each other.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for joining us for this conversation. I believe this is a conversation that should be had over and over again, not just in the month of June, because as we said, it's of essence that we talk about mental health awareness, not just for men, but for human beings in general. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This is where we end this particular conversation. Thank you so much for staying tuned, and thank you so much for just getting to be with us from the moment we started off the show till this point. This is where we say goodbye as the Good Morning Kenyan team. My name is Vivian Dagwa. See you tomorrow, same time, and please, God willing, goodbye.
Looking to advertise on KBC? KBC announcement services are now available on eCitizen. Visit kbc.ecitizen.go.ke and fill out the online application form. It's simple. 1. Complete the form. 2. Upload required documents. 3. Receive a quotation based on word count. And 4. Get notified via SMS when your announcement is ready. Please note, clearly indicate the type of announcement, service station, and all relevant details. 2. All applications must be made online only. Manual submissions will not be accepted. And 3. Announcements will air after news bulletins. For assistance, reach us on email ecitizen@kbc.co.ke or use our social media handles, Facebook, your Facebook account, and X at your X account. Or you can call us on 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124. KBC announcements. Simple, fast, and digital.
19 nations will compete in the Total Energies CAF African Nations Championship, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania 2024, which will be staged from 2nd to 30th August 2025. Amongst the 4 groups in the tournament A to D, Kenya is pooled in Group A, together with Morocco, Angola, DR Congo, and Zambia.
Algeria from the set piece, the header is on target, but it's...
This unique competition featuring the best locally based players from across the continent definitely has something for everyone. Just bring your A game as you let it flow live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
There is a significant risk of human extinction from advanced AI systems.
I love the technologies. I would like to create such kind of technologies to contribute to the human society. Even the brain nerve systems can be connected to the cyberspace.
This is a rapidly evolving technology. People do not know how it currently works, much less how future systems will work. We don't really have ways yet to make sure that what's being developed is going to be safe.
This AI recognize human being also the one of the important living things.
This very small group of people are developing really powerful technologies we know very little about.
People's concerns about generative AI wiping out humanity stem from a fear that, if left unchecked,